Good morning and welcome to the July 24, 2018 County Commission meeting of Brevard County. We have a quorum, so I'll call this meeting to order. If you would please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Commissioner Tabaya?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't think we have meeting minutes to approve this meeting. Before we move to resolutions and award commission, I want to ask for your consent on this. I got with the county attorney. I believe we're going to have a lot of cards this morning. And so I would like to go ahead and for all of the consent agenda items, everything except, of course, public hearings, that we're going to be doing 3 minutes for each public comment card. And if everybody's okay with that? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So that's going to be the plan this morning. And if you want to speak on any of the items, please get your cards filled out with your names. That would be wonderful. District 4, I believe you have the resolution this morning.
That would be correct.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going to recognize our community corrections folks. So would you all come to the forefront? You can stand at the podium there. You realize, of course, you're going to make it very difficult for our photographer to get all of you in one picture. I'm glad you're all here. Let me read this and then you folks can speak. Whereas community corrections is an essential part of the justice system, and whereas community corrections professionals uphold the law with dignity while recognizing the right of the public to be safeguarded from criminal activity, and whereas community corrections professionals are responsible for supervising offenders in the community, and whereas community corrections professionals are trained professionals who provide services and referrals for offenders, and whereas these community corrections professionals work in partnership with community agencies and groups, and whereas community corrections professionals promote prevention, intervention, and advocacy. Whereas community corrections professionals provide services, support, and protection for victims, and whereas these professionals advocate community and restorative justice, and whereas community corrections professionals are a true force for positive change in our communities. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County does hereby proclaim the week of July 15th through 21st, 2018 as pretrial probation and parole supervision week. Clients, employees, and communities. Powers through partnerships. I encourage all citizens to honor these community corrections professionals and to recognize their achievements. Done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 24th day of July 2018. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve this proclamation.
I have a motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Rachel Richardson. I'm the Circuit Administrator for the 18th Judicial Circuit for the Florida Department of Corrections. Thank you, Commissioner Smith, for sponsoring the resolution declaring pretrial probation and parole week, the 15th to the 21st. I'm honored to have a few minutes to speak before you all and to recognize the tremendous efforts that our staff in Brevard and across the state do each and every day, sometimes working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. With me today is just a sampling of our staff. We have staff all up and down the county of Brevard who work very hard. I was very appreciative of the ones that were able to get here today with me today. The rest are back at the offices. Our officers support the mission of the Department of Corrections, monitoring the supervision of over 4,500 felony offenders in Brevard County alone. Officers work to provide a continuum of services to meet the needs of the offenders who are entrusted in our care. They make referrals to agencies on a daily basis, trying to match the needs of the offender with the services that we have. Staff facilitate self-improvement programs in all of our offices. They run Thinking for Change classes. They hold job and resource fairs. They work and coordinate GED classes in our offices. And they make thousands of home, personal, employment, personal, and treatment contacts each and every month. They work to create safer communities by partnering with law enforcement to conduct initiatives. They're taking guns off the street constantly on a daily basis. They're doing searches. They're taking drugs out of homes. And they're making sure that the offenders are in compliance with the court orders and the conditions of their supervision. Our hope is reduced victimization, safer communities, and successful outcomes for the offenders that we supervise. Our agency vision is inspiring success, transforming one life at a time, and our staff do this each and every day with the efforts that they put forth in assisting offenders towards successful outcomes. I want to commend and applaud and appreciate the hard work, dedication, diligence, and resilience of these state employees and our staff in Brevard County. Our support staff, our officers, our supervisors, they demonstrate professionalism and commitment to the citizens of the state of Florida each and every day. And I thank them all. I could not do this job without each one of them. So thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
And don't be afraid to step on the top stair.
Before we do this, I want to thank all of you for being here and for all the hard work that you perform for our county. Okay. Stand here with me.
Thank you for all you do. We are at the consent agenda. Does any of the commissioners want to have any of these items pulled separately and hear them?
Madam Chair, I would like to just make a comment on 7, which is the approval for the intersection signalization of construction agreement between Brevard County, the Vieira Company, and Dean Mead for the Vieira Boulevard and Holiday Springs intersection. This is a really good example of public-private cooperation. This is going to start and finish about a year ahead of schedule and under budget. So I just want to highlight and thank all the people that were involved, Vieira Company, our roads department, and all the people involved, because this is really a big deal. So, and I don't think we give people credit enough when they come out, when they do things ahead of schedule and under budget. So that's why I wanted to do that.
Thank you. That was pretty creative. Commissioner Barfield, did you have one?
Yes, I'd like to pull F4 and F12.
12. Any others, commissioners? Okay, then upon a motion, we will approve everything but F4 and F2. I also just want to make a note here. A thank you to Owen Charles Gallagher. He left his inheritance to the public library, and I just wanted to give him a shout out for that. I thought it was pretty good. Oh. Well, we will hear that again twice. I'm a female, and I wanted to get my thing in first. But do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
I have a motion by Commissioner Smith. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Commissioner Barfield.
Go ahead on F4.
Yes, so F4 is a request to waive Section 622883D, which requires a 15-foot perimeter buffer tract along the perimeter of residential subdivisions. This is for an application containing 5 townhome units on a half acre of land on A1A, approximately a mile and a half south of O'Galley Boulevard. So this request comes to us in conjunction with a site plan approval for that townhome development. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Really, my concern with this is that by the regulation, if I'm correct, their neighbors do not have to be notified of any of this.
That is correct.
Well, you've got townhomes that could be looking down in somebody else's yards. And so what I would recommend we do is we table this and then notify the neighbors and let them know what's going on, and then bring it back.
Is that a motion, sir?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we table this and have staff notify the neighbors, and so they can have an opportunity to look at it.
Just for clarification, do you want that to come back on the August 14th meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
You have a motion to table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Isnardi. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Commissioner Tobias, I'm sorry, I missed your light, sir.
Not a problem. I was just trying to find out what the opinion of the commissioner whose district this resides, and by seconding,
So
I
she
think,
seconded
I
it,
think
yeah,
we...
okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Barfield?
Yes, thank you for stealing my thunder. But,
Sorry.
you know, a lot of times we end up getting donations for libraries, and I think it's more appropriate that we thank them in public instead of putting on the consent agenda. And we did receive, why don't you go ahead and explain it?
Thank you, Commissioner. We did receive a behest from a patron of the South Mainland Public Library, Mr. Owen Gallagher, who passed away in January of this year. Mr. Gallagher was a patron of that library and clearly loved it and has left us a substantial amount of money to that library. And all I can say is we've had a number of these over the past few years, and every time this happens, we in Library Services are deeply humbled and appreciative for these donations. They're really something quite amazing and show how much people do love their library.
Okay, with that, I'd like to make a motion that we accept this contribution.
A motion to Commissioner Barfield, a second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, passes 5-0. We're going to move into public hearings right now. We still have a few minutes, so we're going to move into H1.
Morning, Commissioners. What you have before you with H1 is the second and final public hearing for our annual action plan. It's a requirement from HUD. We had a 30-day public comment period that closed at 5 p.m. last night. We have received no public comments. So this action is to request the board conduct a public hearing and then approve multiple actions in accordance with our needs for our federal funding. Among those are authorizing the chair to sign the federal forms, SF-424s, authorizing the county manager designee to execute program grant agreements and disbursement agreements with our partner cities, sign contractual agreements and amendments for projects identified in the action plan, and authorize the department as contract administrators to use competitive processes to ensure those actions and activities take place.
Thank you, sir. Commission, what's your pleasure?
I would like to make a motion to approve.
I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes 5-0. Item 2.
Commissioners, this is a follow-up to the board action from the prior meeting for economic development tax exemption ordinance that as recommended by the EDC for Project Rainbow.
Thank you, sir. Commission, what's your pleasure?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
I have a motion by Commissioner Smith. Do I have a second?
Second with discussion.
Second by Commissioner Isnardi for discussion. Yes, ma'am, you have the floor.
I would just say that this only involves an 80% tax abatement. It doesn't involve any cash, and this is what the voters approved when they allowed for us to grant tax abatements, and I appreciate the diligence of our county staff making sure that they're living up to their promises of jobs, et cetera, but this in by no means it means that the county's going to give them any kind of cash dollars or anything like that, so I just wanted that for the record.
Yes, ma'am. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 4-1 with Commissioner Tabaya in objection. Item 3.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Item 3 is a substantial amendment to our 5-year action, our consolidated plan with HUD. You approve the 1-year annual plan. The 5-year plan is the structure that kind of hangs off of. So HUD has a requirement whenever we make a change to that we bring it before you, have a public hearing. We also had a 30-day public comment period, which ended on July 16th, and we also received no comments. The change that we're requesting is to add an activity to our list of activities that we can conduct with our federal funds. And this activity is going to be able to pay for water and sewer hookups for low-income families in unincorporated Brevard and in our partner cities through our urban county agreements.
Thank you, sir. Commission, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Smith. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item 4.
Good morning, Commissioners. This item is requesting that the board set the fiscal year 2018-2019 proposed millage rates. On June 29th, staff received the certified property values from the property appraiser that started the clock ticking on trim requirements. Florida statute requires that within 35 days of that certification of value, which is going to be August 3rd, that the taxing authority must inform the property appraiser of several items. The prior year millage, current year proposed millage rate, the current year rollback rate, and the time, date, and meeting place of the tentative budget hearing. Within 55 days after the certification of value, which is August 23rd, the property appraiser is required to mail the trim notice, which notifies taxpayers of the tentative millage rates and also serves as the announcement for the first public hearing in September. The first public hearing will be held on September 11th, 2018 at 5:30 p.m. At that meeting, the board will adopt the tentative millage and the tentative budget. Within 15 days after that tentative budget hearing, the taxing authority advertises its intent to adopt a final millage and budget. We'll be doing that in the Florida Today. The taxing authority is required to advertise a notice of proposed tax increase if the tentative adopted millage rate is greater than the rollback rate in the aggregate. If the tentative adopted millage rate is equal to or less than the rollback rate, the advertisement is headed Notice of Budget Hearing. Under the proposed millage rates that are submitted as part of this agenda today, there would not be a notice of proposed tax increase issued as part of the trim notice, and that's because the aggregate millage is at the rollback rate for aggregate millage. On September 25th, the final public hearing will be held at this meeting for each of the 25 taxing districts. The board will discuss the percent increase in millage over the rollback rate. You'll adopt the millage rates and the budgets by separate vote, each one separately, and adopt resolutions by announcing each taxing authority rollback rate, the percentage increase, and the millage rate that's going to be levied. The agenda attachment provides the board with specific details on the 25 individual taxing districts that the Brevard County is the taxing authority over. The proposed millage rates that are included as part of this agenda this morning have been established consistent with and within the Brevard County Charter, Florida statutes, and voter-approved rate structures for voter-approved millages. Well, the majority of operating rates are proposed at the rate that increases the ad valorem by 2.13% change in the CPI, and that's with the exception of new construction. That's consistent with and in conformity with the county charter. 5 voter-approved taxing districts have been proposed within the voter-approved and statutorily allowed limits. I'd like to take this opportunity to also thank the board members for the guidance and the direction that you provided to assist staff in putting together the fiscal year 2018-2019 proposed budget. A special thanks to our budget director, Jill Hayes, and her budget office staff for their dedication and efforts, as well as our assistant county managers, John Denninghoff and Jim Liesenfeld, and the department directors and office directors and their staffs who worked diligently to help us put this proposal before the board for your consideration. Jill and I and staff are here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, County Manager. Ms. Jill, do you have any comments? Or okay, Commission, what's your Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for all the diligent work that went into this. I just have a couple quick questions, and I guess these would go to directed at Jill. The notice that we're putting in the paper, or potentially putting in the paper due to this action, will that be similar to last year, or will that be different from last year?
So the action at this meeting is actually adopts the millage rates that we provide to the property appraiser, which will be included in the trim notices. If these are the millages that the board adopts at the tentative budget hearing, that is what determines what we advertise in the paper. So under this proposal, it would be a notice of budget hearing.
And that's different from last year?
That's correct.
And what's the difference from last year?
So last year we were required to advertise a notice of proposed tax increase under Florida statute because the aggregate tentative rate was higher than the aggregate rolled back rate.
Okay, so if we were to approve this, just to be clear, this budget, unlike last year's, would not be a tax increase?
According to Florida statute, that's correct. We would not have to advertise a notice of proposed tax increase.
Thank you. Why does the Eels district require a supermajority vote?
So under Florida statute, in the truth and millage requirements, we are required to calculate a maximum millage levy for each individual taxing district. And so in the case of Eels, the way the millage, maximum millage is calculated, it looks at the prior year, what the maximum levy the maximum tax rate you could levy, and then comes up with a rollback rate, and then you're allowed to increase that by the change in Florida per capita income. And then, so that gives you your simple majority rate, and then you can increase that by 10%, which gives you the super majority rate, and that's the rate being proposed for Eels in order to maintain their current service level.
And can you, just to follow up, can you help me give me just a rough estimate what that delta is between the super majority and the regular majority in revenue collected?
Yeah, it's about $220,000.
Okay. Would the difference in revenue, that $220,000, if collected through a different voter-approved recreation district, be eligible to appropriate to AstroTurf?
So, if the board were to, in order to shift that delta into another recreation taxing district, we would need to look at, we would need to adjust what's in the debt millage for that particular recreation district, and then those funds could be appropriated as directed by the board for any operating or capital associated with the referendum projects.
Thank you.
I just want to thank staff again. This has been my last budget, but excellent job putting this together, and we had some very good discussions about the budget, and I'm sure we'll have more, but just want to thank you all for all you do on this, because there's a lot to it, and I've worked with budgets quite a bit, and it's very well done, very well reading. The front of it's very well explained. I think it's good for the public too, and with that, I'd go ahead and make a motion that we adopt the proposed 2018-2019 ad valorem millages as posted in here.
I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. I do want to make a comment that, I just want to thank the commissioners up here and maybe some work of the past commissioners, throw them in a little kudos too. The things we're doing now starting to work. The economy's becoming, it's recovering, and a lot of that has to do with the tourism that we've been able to entice into the area, which is increasing businesses. If this continues, you're going to be able to see and enjoy lower property taxes as we keep moving into the future. The only twist on that is your property values will be going up, which is a good thing, and you have to pay more taxes on property values. So I do just want to give a thank you to all the commissioners and the staff and everybody who's worked very diligently on these tourism projects and getting our economy back to where it should be. And I have a motion on the table and a second, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you. And we are at the time certain, well, a minute within it, so I'm going to go ahead and move to item J3. Judge, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am Judge Kelly McKibben, and I serve as the Chair of the Children's Services Council of Brevard. Our council membership, as mandated by statute, is made up of appointed, elected, and hired persons or positions that all have expertise in child welfare. I would ask that all of our members please stand as they are introduced. First, Bunny Finney is our Vice Chair, and she was appointed by the Governor. Next, we have our Secretary-Treasurer, Bart Getjens, who is also a Governor appointee. Your fellow Commissioner, Christina Znardi, is a member of our council. Andy Ziegler, an elected official and member of the Brevard County School Board, is also on the council. Another member is Tracy Klinkbiel with the Department of Children and Families. Dr. Desmond Blackburn has been serving on the council in his capacity as the Brevard County Public Schools Superintendent. And finally, our three additional members who are appointed by the Governor are Adrian Lafitte, Todd Morley, and Sharon Underhill. We come before you to ask for your approval of the proposed ballot language for a referendum we seek to place before Brevard County citizens. The Council respectfully requests the opportunity to present our case to the voters to fund and invest more resources into our children, especially ages birth through 5. We know you have many responsibilities and have to take make many critical decisions as county commissioners. There are obviously many challenges facing our community and many competing priorities. However, we believe we should put our children at the top of the list. As we review the county ordinance which created the council and Florida statutes which authorize counties to invest more in their children, our understanding is that the electorate, the people, hold the authority to decide on funding this independent governing body. As noted in Section 6 of the ordinance, we are simply seeking review by the Commission of the referendum ballot language to ensure it is in order and to authorize putting the issue before the voters. We firmly believe we can do better for our children. We feel Brevard County's children should have the opportunity for more services so that they may thrive. I have spent a majority of my career in child welfare, first as an attorney for the Department of Children and Families for 11 years, and then when I was assigned to preside over the Dependency Division for 2.5 years as a circuit judge. During this experience, I have seen heartbreaking family situations and tragedies, many that could have been avoided if the children and families had received preventive and increased services. There is definitely a need. Our council has done extensive research, has had many thoughtful discussions, and has developed the plan that is detailed in the report that was presented to you. We are not asking you to improve or endorse this document, but we sincerely hope you allow the council the opportunity to present our plan to the voters. I will now ask our Vice Chair, Bunny Finney, to address you to address the children's needs in Brevard and the 4 priority areas that we have discussed and approved. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Bunny Finney, Vice Chair of the Council. I moved to Brevard in 1963 and met and married my husband Phil here. Brevard is our family's home. Much of my community service has been in the children's arena, and my CSE appointments have been by Governors Bush, Christ, and Scott. In 2016, Council began exploring public funding options for children's services as outlined in Brevard Ordinance 9041. We did our homework by considering data regarding existing systems of care and gaps in services. We listened to Brevard's many great children's organizations, considered local, state, and national trends and data, reviewed the science around early brain development, and considered reports from Harvard University to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We were and continue to be cognizant that Brevard is a conservative county, and we are a conservative council. We concluded that there is a real cost to taxpayers for not investing in prevention and early intervention services. Existing providers cannot reach many at-risk children due to limited and decreasing resources. With secured, dedicated funding, services and systems of care, which are currently unfunded and underfunded, can be provided. We've submitted a report to you with today's request, and I direct you to page 3 that outlines the current needs and planned responses. Note that in 2016, there were 106,000 children in Brevard County, 21.5% of them living in poverty. In 2017, over 8,000 children were involved in child abuse cases, and behind every single one of those numbers is the face of a child looking for help. The Council has determined 4 priority funding areas. On page 5 of your report is Focus A. Children will begin life healthy and thriving. We will enhance and better integrate services for children prenatal through 3. Fact, 1 premature baby born to an uninsured mom can cost taxpayers millions of dollars in Medicaid services. Page 6, Focus B, children will start school ready to learn and succeed. We will increase and improve quality of child care with a focus on kindergarten readiness. Focus C, children will be safe and connected outside of school. We provide early delinquency prevention and expand out-of-school time initiatives for elementary and middle school children. Focus D, children will be socially and emotionally secure. We will build capacity and expand services for children with physical, intellectual, and/or emotional challenges, including mental health. Fact, teens receiving early mental health counseling may be diverted from expensive taxpayer-provided mental health services in the county jail. Regarding public opinion, local polling results support the position that a vast majority of Brevardians want to see something done. CSCs are a proven model. Florida statute calls for CSCs to be reauthorized every 12 years, which statewide voters have overwhelmingly supported at 76 to 85%. Beyond the millions of much-needed dollars in new and expanded services for children, we are equally excited about the potential of a Children's Services Council team that will serve as a central point of coordination for data and planning, which, while bringing government, businesses, and not-for-profit organizations together in a way we have not experienced. Now Bart will tell you about our proposed council structure, transparency, and accountability.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you, Bunny. Our council and our community are so grateful for your many years of service. So I am the newbie. I was appointed by the governor to the council in April, and they in turn voted me to be the CSC's secretary and treasurer. When I came on board, I was impressed with the amount of work and research already completed by this council. I am involved in many community organizations, and I felt I had a good understanding of the needs in our community. However, since joining the council, my eyes have been opened to a much deeper need than I previously realized. With the council fully constituted in April and a lot of heavy lifting already done, we've been able to make several key decisions. As Judge McKibben noted, the council voted to seek funding through a referendum. As Bonnie mentioned, the council established its 4 funding priorities. Next, the council had discussions around the taxing authority. The Florida statute permits councils to seek taxing authority up to 1/2 mil of ad valorem property taxes. Our council recognizes the conservative nature of our community and, mindful of the current tax structure, proposed not 1/2 mil, but voted to limit our authority to 1/3 mil. Furthermore, the council is committed to limiting the initial levy to no more than 1/4 of a mil, which would be just over $8.6 million based on 2017 property tax valuations. This would equate to approximately $6 a month or one Starbucks for an investment in our children. With these decisions made, the council determined to establish an independent structure as opposed to contracting with an existing entity. The council was able to build a projected budget, which is detailed in page 18 in your package. As you will note, we researched the children's service councils in both Martin and St. Lucie counties due to a similar size and build of our budget and proposed staffings based on their examples. We visited both of these organizations to get a clear sense of the task and requirement. After the visit, our council decided on having the lowest administrative costs of any council in the state. Any council. We propose a smaller staff than either our sister councils in Martin or St. Lucie counties. When we talk about administrative costs, it's not all overhead. Included in the budget are planned and coordination of services or program costs. What most people would call overhead, management in general, would only be approximately 4%. To provide full accountability and transparency, we know that you and the voters will demand. We, the council, has developed an executive timeline on page 20 in your package. If on the ballot and funded, the council would build its staff and put together a comprehensive request for proposal application package. The council will establish an independent citizens review team to help score the proposals. The council is committed to investing in tax dollars judiciously and wisely. Additionally, the accountability and transparency measures will be in place as required by any taxing district, including sunshine laws, trim meetings, etc. Per county ordinance, the council is required to provide an annual report to the commission on details of funding and results. And as I begin to wrap up, we know the voters may want to give themselves an additional tax relief by supporting Amendment 1, and because of recent federal tax reforms, nearly all of us are receiving more money in our paychecks. It is our hope that if allowed to make our case, voters will consider reinvesting some of that tax relief into our children. The council is prepared to meet the needs of our children.
How much longer do you think you have so I can get a motion?
Closing here, Commissioner.
Okay.
Thank you. The council is prepared to meet the needs of our children in the future to make Brevard County an even greater place for everyone to live and work. We're ready. I sincerely thank you for your time and for your consideration, and thank you for allowing me to go over a couple seconds.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Pritchett, may I make one final comment? Thank you. Again, we respectfully ask that you approve the ballot language and let the council make its case to the voters on November 6th and put Brevard's kids first. And we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. We have cards. We have many cards. Commission, do I have any comments from you before I start calling cards? Mr. Abate.
Yeah, Commissioner, we've handed out to you a revised resolution. Yesterday evening came to our attention that there was an error on the resolution that was included in the initial agenda package. That has been corrected both on online, and you have hard copies in front of you, changing on the ballot language from 1/2 mil to what you heard, which was a 1/3 of a mil, 0.33 mils.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Marcus Hockman. And after Mr. Hockman, Dr. Kim Deffenbach.
May
Sir.
I speak?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very
Please
much.
state your name for the record, please.
Marcus Hochman from Vieira.
Thank you.
Good day, County Commissioners. I come to you to speak on your permission to put the Kids First referendum on the ballot. As a current ESC teacher, former mental health counselor, a former assistant director and intern director of a separate day school who has worked with and continues to work with our children with mental health diagnosis, mental health exceptionalities, and mental health issues, I completely understand the need for this referendum, and I believe in these 4 proposed investments, or as I like to call them, the 4 values from the CSC report, which are, number 1, support the health of newborns and their early development. Number 2, ensure children are prepared to learn at school and achieve their greatest potential. Number 3, provide positive activities and promote self-worth for children and youth. Number 4, help youth live healthy lifestyles and make positive choices. These investments will help our kids in the community and school. These investments will help me to teach students that have been invested in. Now, respectfully, Commissioners, no matter what your opinion is on this funding levy referendum, please let this important decision go directly to the voters, because this is also the responsibility of the constituents. I hope that the 5 county commissioners vote yes, not just because this will help kids, but more importantly, this is about respecting the democratic process. I leave you with these final thoughts. Invest now, and you'll see the payoff in the future. I would like to thank everyone involved with the CSC and put Brevard kids first, because they took ownership and responsibility in this. Number 3, sometimes it's all right to be democratic in the republic for which we stand for. Thank you for listening and your time.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Kim Deffenbach. Don Herndon, you'll be next, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Dr. Kim Deffenbach. I'm a clinical child and adolescent psychologist who has lived, worked, and volunteered in Brevard County for 25 years. I serve on the Board of Directors for Club Esteem as well as the Women's Center. My husband and I are active philanthropists in this county. The lack of children's services and the increasing needs of children in Brevard County are clear. You and your staff have reviewed the CSC documents, and you've heard and you will hear from more community organizations. You know already that children's services in Brevard are extremely underfunded compared to other counties in our state. You know from my email and hearing from others that if a child threatens to kill themselves or kill their classmates in Brevard County, we have no low-cost or free outpatient services provided by a licensed mental health counselor in our county. Anywhere. None. We have none. But you already know that because you've done your research. What you may not know are the reactions of your constituents as we've been out there talking to people over the last several months about the lack of services in our county. First of all, most of our citizens think that we do have services. When they find out there's no mechanism in place for funding, frankly, they're pretty shocked that a county of our size and our education and our income level does not take care of its most vulnerable citizens. Many of your constituents think that this is morally wrong, and many of your constituents are scared because they know that turning a blind eye to this today and not addressing this will affect all of us. It affects our kids' safety in school. It affects whether our children in this county will grow into productive citizens that can enter our workforce, or whether these children will become dependent on the government in adulthood because they're not getting the services they need today during their childhoods. This issue affects all of us, whether we are the people that are going to receive these services or not. These aren't services my kids are going to need. But the people of Brevard County know that. They know we have to invest in our county. And finally, and most importantly perhaps, your constituents, and I wish Mr. Tobias was here, they don't want the government to make this decision for them. They want their voices to be heard. And the other thing that happened is I was out talking to people when I told them that the Commission isn't voting on whether to fund this. The Commission is merely voting on whether to put this on the ballot. A lot of people weren't aware of that. They were surprised. They didn't know that this had to be approved for the ballot. They kind of assumed that their voices would be able to be heard. So I'd like to echo the last speaker and just ask, well, say first of all, if this goes to ballot, there will certainly be people that vote against it, but there will be many, many people that vote for it. People care about our county. They care about our kids. Please allow this to be placed on the November ballot. Let the Brevard County residents decide for themselves whether they'd like to fund this or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Don Herndon. Skybeard, you'll be next, ma'am.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Don Herndon. My wife and I own Classic Wood Flooring. We've been in business here since 1971. We support quite a few nonprofits in the area. I'm a father and a grandfather. I came to Brevard in 1964. My wife was born here in Melbourne, so we feel like we're very dedicated to the county. I'm on the board of Junior Achievement. I'm on the board for AMI Kids and past chair for AMI Kids Board. My wife and I are involved in many other community development things for children. We support them very readily with our own funds. AMI Kids, we serve young men ages 13 to 18. The children are sent to us by Department of Juvenile Justice. The average student comes to us with 15 felony arrests, ages 13 to 18. I feel that had these children had some services earlier in their life, they would not be in our program. They would not be in our penal system. Most of these boys grow up without any structure. They need guidance from responsible adults, and I feel like the CSC would certainly do that for Brevard County. I would certainly ask that you all allow the citizens of Brevard to decide this. This isn't something that we're asking y'all to vote on to raise our taxes. We're asking y'all to allow the citizens of Brevard to decide whether they want to do that or not. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, sir. Sky Beard, John Wheeler, you'll be next, please.
Hi, good morning. My name is Sky Beard. I have the honor of serving as the Executive Director of the Early Learning Coalition here in Brevard County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you just for a few minutes about what we clearly see as a positive impact a local Children's Services Council could have on Brevard's children. Each day, the Early Learning Coalition hears from families of young children in need. These are families who are working, who are going to school, many times both of those things, and doing all that they can to provide for their families. However, childcare is costly, and for many low to moderate income working families, it's difficult to maintain employment, to get to those college classes if you can't afford and don't have access to childcare services. And that's where the school readiness program comes in. It's incredibly valuable for the 3,400 children each month that we're serving right here in Brevard County through that program. And unfortunately, as of yesterday, we have a waiting list of about 584 additional children who are waiting for access for those same services. The school readiness program serves families, again, who are working, who are going to school, who are disabled, who are receiving cash assistance, and children referred to us, many of them, through DCF, working with grandparents and great-grandparents, raising their grandchildren. Homeless and domestic violence shelters are referred to us as well. Families pay a portion of that cost of that care based on a sliding fee scale. That's important that they do that, and we determine those eligibility services through our office. So the families have the access to the services which allow them to continue to work and go to school, which of course has an economic benefit to the community, as well as children enrolled in programs that wouldn't otherwise have access to do so. Of all the families we serve, a consistent trend that we've seen over the last couple years is about 1/3 of all those children are determined at risk. Again, they're referred to us from DCF and other community partners. Many of those children, including those that are just infants, have experienced significant trauma in their lives, and we see lots of little ones who have developmental delays, developmental concerns, and we're able to connect them with other community resources because, as we know, starting early is key. I share with you a little bit about what's happening in the early learning world just as an example of what could be served through a Children's Services Council. It's important that any agency or program that would be funded be vetted through a rigorous competitive procurement process, and we fully support further community conversations about which programs would be funded through a CSC. For example, for our organization, serving some of those additional children on the waiting list, having social emotional services for children, serving families that we aren't able to serve now, like young school-age children, would be extremely helpful for our community. Any dollars that are contributed to the school readiness program, like through a CSC, are leveraged and matched as well at additional $16.67 on the dollar. So our ability to serve more families, as many other partner agencies are able to do as well, is significant. So we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. John Wheeler, Jeff Keel, you'll be next, please.
John Weiler, Merritt Island, Florida. Commissioners, I'm here today to ask you to do your job. And part of your job is making this decision, and don't throw it off to the taxpayers who will come to the polls in the fall unprepared. You're prepared. You know that this is not a good resolution. One of the problems with this resolution is that it will create a bureaucracy that just goes on forever once it's approved. You will no longer have any say-so as county commissioners as how much it's going to be funded by. It's already there. I can't do anything about it, is what we will hear from the future commissioners. So it goes on and on forever. We've created a large new bureaucracy which we don't need. We have many agencies which care for children in this county. There's room for other nonprofits. My suggestion to the people that have proposed this is go create a large nonprofit for this situation. We have many wealthy people in this county who have been very generous for nonprofits that really have a purpose. And once that purpose is explained, I'm sure, and some of you are included in that wealthy group, I'm sure you will donate generously to it to make it happen. The advantage of that is when they don't perform correctly, you can withdraw your funds by the year. What this does is make it an ongoing future problem for all of us. And last but not least, don't put this on the ballot in the fall. We have so many things on the ballot that are important. This one, not that this has no importance, but this one is just going to complicate the situation. People will just not have enough time to decide on the ballot. There's just too many things on the ballot, number one. And I request that you guys do your job and reject this, putting it on the ballot, because it will affect, more importantly, taxpayers that are retirees and so forth. Every taxpayer then gets burdened with this tax in the future. And I heard earlier that, well, gee, you know, we got a little bit of hit because we got the tax relief from the federal government. Well, gee, I just read just last week in Florida Today that all of our properties from the tax appraiser will be going up by about 9.5% in their appraised value. So our taxes are automatically going to go up, and that little bit that we got from the other tax relief will be taken over with our increased property taxes. Even if your millage stays the same, we will individually pay more taxes. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jeff Keel, I would just ask if we didn't applaud or boo, not that it's not okay with it, if y'all would please just abide by that for me, I'd really appreciate that. Mr. Keel?
Good morning. I'm Jeff Keel, co-chair of Put Brevard Kids First. I got involved in assisting the Children's Services Council as a result of my exposure to the gaps that exist between critical needs and the availability of resources for our children. Brevard County population has increased 8.4% since 2010 and is expected to increase another 6.5% by 2025. Through my knowledge as an involved citizen and business leader, along with my exposure to the due diligence performed by the CSC, I have learned that organizations providing services in the 4 outlined focus areas obtain funding through 3 primary sources: federal and state funding, grants, and fundraising activities. In some non-CSC counties like Jacksonville and soon to include Orange County, the county budgets funding these programs within their general fund budget. This, of course, does not exist in Brevard County. The reality is that federal and state funding continues to be under siege. This results in significantly increased competition for grants. And yes, we all know that Brevard is a generous community. I know that you all have organizations that you're passionate about and donate money to. However, I hope you are aware that giving back to the community has changed as the age profile of our community shifts. This is a national trend. Many younger residents are more inclined to roll up their sleeves and offer service that way. If you are closely involved with the nonprofit world, you will recognize that success these days is often defined fundraising being flat to prior year. Times are changing, and this is a reality, and we must deal with it. In summary, population trends have been and will continue to increase. The need for social service support is trending with population trend and maybe faster. Available resources and funding sources are not keeping pace. So the choice we have is to put our heads in the sand and hope it gets better. However, I'm sure you've heard the adage, hope is not a strategy. Regardless of your personal viewpoint, as the statute provides for, please allow the community to have this important discussion between now and November and allow them to decide if the CSC is funded. If after that conversation you and other voters decide to vote no, that is your right. But please allow the community to make this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Nick Tumboldes. Catherine Rudolph, you'll be next, ma'am.
Commissioners, good morning. Good to see you all again. Are any of you familiar with Project Suds America? Because right now, as political insiders are here asking you to launder $130 million in taxpayer money into their slush fund, Project Suds is doing a different type of laundry. They're doing laundry for homeless veterans. Every Tuesday at Flamingo Laundry on Wickham, Project Suds volunteers do laundry for the veterans. The vets get a hot breakfast, they get clean clothes, they get hygiene products and the occasional haircut. Most importantly, they get treated with dignity and respect. Project Suds doesn't have a fat cat CEO, they don't have a $10 million building, they don't even have paid staff. But they don't need any of that because they have heart. Project Suds symbolizes the private charities that get forgotten when government becomes a piggy bank for the well-connected. They're an example of individuals sacrificing to support a cause that they believe in. That is real generosity, unlike the Children's Services Council, which is only generous when it comes to other people's money. Here's the first question to ask. Why can't they raise the money on their own? This group has been around for 30 years. That's longer than Bill Nelson has been a senator. For 30 years, they've taken their pitch to Brevard citizens, and we still haven't opened up the checkbook. Now the CSC wants to bypass the tedious job of persuading people to write them checks. They'd rather wave a magic wand to make taxpayer money appear. But that's not how this works, and failing to raise the money on their own is a red flag. If you look at the counties where this already gets funded, the results are a dumpster fire. Six-figure pay for executives, car allowances, a $17 million building. Get this, the Palm Beach version spent $500,000 on a duo of Canadian consultants whose recommendation was coaching employees on how to reduce their foreign accents. That's not only wasteful, it's racist. It's not hard to see why James Madison once said that charity is no part of the duty of government, or why last week Orange County Mayor Teresa Jacobs killed a similar proposal because, in her words, she didn't know how the money would be spent. Finally, let's address this notion that it's only letting voters decide. That sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Well, it's disingenuous. If this were about giving voters a choice, then you would all vote right now to put a competing choice on the ballot. Why not let voters repeal the half-cent lagoon tax? Why not give us a choice to repeal the half-cent schools tax? That won't happen. And it won't happen because if voters had the choice to repeal taxes, they would do so in a landslide. So let's be real. This isn't about children. This is about the unchecked self-interest of adults using children as political props so they can draw big paychecks from government. It's repulsive. And if you really want to help children, here's the best solution. Allow Brevard families to keep more of what they earn. We don't need more taxes. We don't need more welfare. We need government to admit it's not the solution to our problems. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Catherine Rudolph. Robert Johnson, you'll be next.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you so much for your time on this important issue. In addition to the many urgent matters that will come before you from county staff or legislative mandates that you will be required to follow, you hear from a wide range of concerned citizens about why their issue, their problem, should be your priority. You have the unenviable job of making tough decisions about where our general resources will be spent. Every decision you make today is also impacted by decisions that came before you, like our county charter cap, and decisions that will happen in the future. And I know you're all looking to at Amendment 1 and what that might do to your budget should it pass this fall. The fact is, it is never easy for any local elected official to raise taxes. But perhaps that is the reasoning behind the Florida statute that outlines the framework for an independent body to look out for the health and well-being of our most vulnerable citizens who do not appear at the ballot box to vote. It grants the authority to fund this council directly to the voters. Legislators understood that while it can be hard for local politicians to prioritize spending your limited general revenue tax dollars on services for children, that the voting public will recognize the need and necessity and be willing to personally invest. Our polling backs this up. A survey of over 400 Brevard County voters showed that 65% support funding the Children's Services Council here in Brevard County. And further, the successful results in every single county where a CSC has come up for reauthorization every 12 years by statute, by the way, has passed with over 70%, some into the 80s. Clearly, they are doing something right and have the support of the community. Currently, Florida ranks in the bottom 10 in the nation for child welfare. And today you've heard from other service providers articulating a growing need in Brevard County. Much like local environmentalist concerns about the lagoon, raised concerns about the lagoon for years before the 2016 fish kill, these local welfare activists are sounding the alarm that we have a growing problem and our social safety net is being stretched thin, and children are beginning to fall through our cracks. As you have heard, unreliable funding and increased competition for donors and grants are a major reason that local service providers cannot increase their funding and able to keep up with demand. And too often we see programs for children's health care used as political pawns at the state and the federal level during their budget negotiations. Children's service councils are an established form of governance designed specifically to make sure caring for our kids does not have to compete with funding for roads and public safety. A funded CSC will dedicate local tax dollars to care for local children, overseen by local experts, advocates, and local elected officials. CSCs are designed to remove the burden of taxation from you and place the question directly before the people. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Robert Johnson, Trevor Howard, you'll be next, please.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Robert Johnson. I'm from Indialantic. I have two kids that I've raised in Brevard County. My kids have had the benefit of a safe, stable, supportive family. For the past 17 years, I've served as the Executive Director of Brevard County Legal Aid. And one of our most important program priorities at Legal Aid involves representation of children, legal advocacy for kids, abused and neglected kids, kids who have been removed from the custody of their parents because they're in danger. So we know what it's like, firsthand, front line, what it's like to represent especially foster kids of all ages, kids mostly that have physical, intellectual disabilities and are caught in a legal system they don't understand without the benefit of a family system, without that support and stability. And I also come from the perspective of having lived and worked for over a decade in a county that has a Children's Services Council, and knowing firsthand what an incredible difference it makes in the lives of kids. You have polling data before you that demonstrates how deeply the voters, your constituents, care about this issue. You have a unique opportunity to just let your constituents decide. Please give them a chance. Give the kids a chance.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Trevor Howard, Lois Lacoste, you'll be next.
Good morning, Commissioners. How are you all today? I'm glad to be here. My name is Trevor Howard. I'm the director for Dorcas Outreach Center for Kids located in the O'Galley area in the Booker T. Washington neighborhood. I moved to Brevard County in 1992 after the Hurricane Andrew that devastated Homestead and South Miami. My mom made $18,000 a year working part-time jobs, taking care of myself and my older brother, my brother who has schizophrenia. And when we moved to Brevard County in 1992, things changed for me and my brother and my mom. People gave us an opportunity to do things differently, I watched my mom and my brother have M16 rifles pointed at their heads because people decided to have drugs in a location which they shouldn't have, but due to everybody being suspects, it traumatized me. I suffered at the hand of physical abuse, emotional abuse. I grew up in some tough times, but Brevard County gave me a chance, and people that representing our community gave me a chance. And as a result, I graduated from Palm Bay High School in 2001. I went to college and earned 4 college degrees in 4.5 years. I am a married man with 3 children. One's in college, another's graduating high school. I have a 5-year-old who attends Holy Trinity. I have never been arrested. I even have a 725 credit score. That's pretty good. I was a teacher in Brevard County for 3 years at Palm Bay High School, 2006 to 2010. I served as an education coordinator for the Brevard County Boys and Girls Club. I traveled the county wide to make sure our little kids had education, packets, doing good in school. I served as the teen health advisor at G Resolution's Behavioral Health Clinic for 3 years, and now I serve proudly as the doc director. We serve kids who parents make less than $24,000 a year, 95% of them. 75% of them are coming from families who have single-parent households, meaning a single parent, like my mother, raising multiple children, even grandparents raising multiple children. None of our kids who we serve at our center have been arrested. None are gang affiliated. Tallying our grades, 34% make A's and B's considered on the honor roll. Our average grade point average is a 2.65. See, one thing I've learned in living in this county and living in poverty is that when you give people a chance, you give people a choice, they want what's better. They may not understand the ins and outs. As you can see here, I am the only African American male in this room. We need a chance. People gave me a chance. Give our community a chance by having this on our ballot come November. Thank you.
Thank you for your ministry, sir. Lois Lacoste, Nancy Peltona, you'll be next.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having us and allow us to voice our opinion. My name is Lois Lacoste, and I live in Port St. John, Florida. So we are here again to decide whether taxes should go up again for Brevard residents to fund a charity, the Children's Services Council. I lived in Brevard County for 31 years, so I am very aware of the taxpayer dollars spent on extravagant salaries and huge, sprawling, oversized buildings there for Children's Services Council. What has happened in Broward and West Palm Beach County hasn't worked out very well. My husband and I moved here 14 years ago, and we love living in Brevard County. But in the last 4 years, we've seen 2 sales tax hikes, property tax hikes, and increases on stormwater, trash, at least I see those gentlemen twice a week, ambulance transfers, and fire assessments. Your answers always seem to be increased taxes rather than working within your existing budget. I am retired now, and I live on a fixed income. My cost of living increase is a joke. Almost half of my property taxes go towards taxes for schools. I was happy to bring along my property tax bill from last year. I would advise everyone in the audience to pull out their property tax bill for 2017 and see how much of your property taxes go towards schools. My property tax is almost half for schools. What are they doing with that money? Now you want more money. For the gentleman who announced it is only $6 more a month, I already paid $890 this past year for schools. I do not appreciate your consideration to increase my taxes again, especially for a charity. Those who want to give to a charity should do so, but taxpayers should not be mandated to pay taxes for the benefit of the Children's Services Council charity. Whether you call it taxes, charity, millage, or assessments, bottom line, it always means my taxes are going up again. I also believe if you are a homeowner over the age of 65, you should no longer be required to pay school taxes. I've paid my fair share for the past 40 years. When are parents going to raise and be responsible for their own children that they are having? And for the gentleman who mentioned Starbucks,
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
haven't
Your
bought a
time's up.
Starbucks
Ma'am, I'm
since I
sorry.
retired.
Your time's up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nancy Peltona, Cheryl Link, she'll be next, please.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Nancy Pelton, and I am the President and CEO of the Greater Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce. I'm here today as a supporter of allowing voters the opportunity to decide whether they will invest much-needed funds to support critical children's services in Brevard. One of the largest concerns I hear from the business community today is the growing shortage of skilled workers. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation published a paper called Workforce of Today, Workforce of Tomorrow, the Business Case for High-Quality Child Care. The report found that one root problem is the underestimation of the importance of the earliest years of life. Since our societal norms have changed to women working in the workforce, childcare is mostly in the hands of early childcare facilities. The report found a strong relationship between world-class childcare and a world-class workforce. 45% of children who attended VPK programs in Florida did not pass the test of readiness for kindergarten in 2017. Florida VPK has the second highest enrollment rate in the country, but ranks in the bottom 10 nationally for funding the program. When children attend school, it establishes a set of skills and abilities that raises the productivity of all subsequent human capital investment. Essentially, tax dollars spent on early childhood development provide extraordinary returns compared with investments in the public and even private sector. Economists at the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis found that investments in early childhood result in more effective public schools, improved public health, less crime, and more educated, skilled workers. Extraordinary development occurs from birth to age 5, forming the bedrock for lifelong health, intellectual ability, emotional well-being, and social functioning. Business leaders have long understood the importance of a well-educated workforce to support a strong economy, keep America competitive globally, and ensure a vibrant democracy. High-quality childcare is a wise investment in America's future. Our nation's prosperity tomorrow rests in the young children who are in childcare today. I believe Brevard citizens should have the opportunity to vote on this critical issue. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Cheryl Lankies, Diane Schomer, you'll be next, ma'am.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing public comment. There are several reasons why I believe you should not vote to add another tax to the November ballot. Firstly, I do not believe it's the job of the government to interject itself into a family in the name of children's services. It's the mother and father's job to raise and discipline their own child. If the county commission were to do anything, it should be to support and honor the family unit. No one can replace the love of the father and the mother. Children need to be taught to respect their parents, not to look for a government handout. The same group of people have been used to promote the last two taxes. The half-cent sales tax used for the lagoon and the half-cent sales tax for the schools. Please don't think we haven't noticed they are being recycled to beg more money from the public. This system of wealth redistribution is not the job of government. Yours is not the job of choosing which organizations our dollars should help. The November ballot is already crowded with amendments that are multifaceted, making it a tough ballot to vote. Adding one more item will complicate the process beyond reason. Don't do it to the public. Don't bring the drama to the forefront when you haven't done the real work of fulfilling the needs of the county. Children's Services Council is another layer of government that oversees other layers of government that are already working for the betterment of our children. It coordinates, leverages, ensures, determines, and plans. It monitors, strategizes, and invests and prioritizes, claiming the best use of taxpayer dollars. I can save you the trouble and tell you wholeheartedly the best use of my tax dollars is leaving them for me to spend. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I volunteered 12 years to Girl Scouts, 12 years to homeroom mom. I worked with other people's kids. You cannot pay a person enough money to have a heart for children. Dollars don't buy that. Please don't vote for this unnecessary tax.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Diane Schomer and Libby Donahue, you'll be next.
My name is Diana Schomer. I'm from Merritt Island. And I really do not think it's the job of the county commissioners to determine to take my money to give to the charity of their choice. My charitable contributions should be mine and mine alone. I shouldn't be dictated to about that. I shouldn't be coerced into making contributions to charities. And I would take that one step further in saying that I think that the county commissioners should never entertain pleas from any charity ever. I don't think that's what your job is. If you really think the children need more help, put more in the budget for the school counselors to work with. You need to not put this on. Right now, they're talking about $130 million over 12 years. This is the kind of money they're talking about. This is real money. This is big money. We're talking about the United Way being the administrator of all of this money. And that person, the president of that, Rob Raines, his current salary, if the internet is to be believed, is $179,000 a year. I suspect he will increase his salary based on an additional $130 million coming in the next 10 years, or 12 years. So he will hire a bunch of his friends and whatever at high salaries. How much will really go to the kids? I doubt very little will go to the kids. It's just, I just think you're taking away my personal discretion with my own personal income, and I think you've been doing it a lot with a lot of charities, and I don't think that's your job, and I don't even think we should be having this discussion. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Lily Donahue.
I'm Libby Donahue. I live in Melbourne. I run 211 Brevard, so we are very familiar with the needs of the children in the county. I want to remind you that no one is asking for you to vote in favor of a tax, that what we're asking is that you not impede the rights of citizens to vote for or against the tax by placing it on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That is the end of the comment cards. Did you? Let me see if we got placed you. What's your name, ma'am?
Maybe it got misplaced. I don't think she lied.
Tell you what, ma'am, why don't you come forward and speak, and if you would, just fill out another card for me back there.
Sure.
And,
I'm sorry.
Don't be
Cocoa,
sorry.
Florida.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say, as we all know, excuse me, I'm nervous, and I shouldn't be. This is I've been
mislabeled, just so you know.
Oh,
gotcha.
okay.
Go
Thank
ahead, I'm
you.
sorry.
I'm not going to go through the whole thing about charities. I pulled up an 8-page list of that Brevard County has for supporting family and child charities, and if anybody would like to see them. And United Way is definitely on here, March of Dimes. Excuse me. Please, Lord, let me have some patience. Everybody supports their favorite charities in their own way. Some donate monetarily, others donate their personal time. We all have our favorite charities and do not want the county setting a precedent to fund these charities through our property taxes. Now, I realize the Children's Service Council would like us to vote on their referendum, but it seems they didn't go out and canvass the Brevard citizens for their signatures. That's what they should have done. They should have brought you a petition with signatures, a percentage of signatures, citizen signatures, to put the referendum on the ballot. They did not do that. They came to the city council or the county commissioners to do it, and that is wrong. We are asking you to please do not vote to put this referendum on the November ballot. And I am sorry I'm so crazy. I sat there crazy. But thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, that is the end of our comment cards. Commissioners, do you want to take a break or do you want to have conversation? Pardon? Okay, we'll move on. Don't everybody push your lights at once here. Okay. Commissioner Isnardi.
I'll talk first. I'll be the brave one. Thank you guys for coming. Just for the record, because I've gotten some emails and some calls, I am a member of the Children's Services Council, and it's by state statute that the commission appoint a member to that board. So I am not an advocate nor a detractor of the mission of the board. I think it sort of puts me in an awkward position because we go to these meetings and and I personally, and as you know, I wouldn't share my opinion one way or the other with the newspaper. I think that that's meant for meetings. I don't think that putting that information out there in the public early on is necessarily a good idea, just to avoid any possible confusion, persuasion, messages to other commissioners, etc. You know, and I struggle with this because I do care about kids, and I appreciate everything that you guys do. Everybody in this room has a passion and a heart for children. What I take issue with is that what you're asking, and this is why we were elected up here to decide whether or not, I mean, we put that board in place in 1990, 28 years ago. The commission has the authority to repeal that board as well. But by doing that, what we've done is we've allowed you guys to either present your case to the board or to, again, collect signatures like a resident stated. What I take issue with is the lack of oversight, the lack of accountability. Now, while you're required to submit that budget to the state, I mean, you're also allowed to set a budget and to choose the programs you want to fund without any input from an elected body. So we would have no say for 12 years on how that money is spent. That would be up to the Children's Services Council. And that's what I take issue with. It's over $8 million. I mean, I guess $7.6 million that can be implemented. But I think that this is the largest form, in my opinion, of taxation without representation. And I think that that's why we were elected. And if people don't like what we're doing and people don't like the decisions that we make, they vote us out of office. What I take issue with is a Children's Services Council hiring a PAC to push their agenda. That is disturbing to me because we all know how that works. There's a PAC, there's this force of
obviously wealthy, mostly wealthy people that can afford this tax, and then there's the 75-year-old person that, is a single income, living on a fixed income, that says, I have no say where this money is going, who just was given a tax by the city of Palm Bay for a stormwater increase of $177 a year. So that's what I have to think about. That's what we're tasked with, is the responsibility of deciding whether or not we should put this on the ballot. If you read the language, I gave this to my 19-year-old, who I would consider a very smart, politically astute individual. And what he got from that, and he understands that we pay taxes, he understands that we decide, on a budget, he understands, he even talked about, he had our budget down to the exact dollar on how big our budget is at the county, because it does interest him. He wasn't clear on the idea that this was a separate body. He wasn't clear that the ultimate responsibility didn't fall on this board of county commissioners, and that all he saw was helping kids. And who doesn't want to help kids? And I don't want voters to have to look at a ballot item and not be sure where the accountability ultimately resides with. And I think that you're asking voters to decide on an issue that only affects homeowners. I mean, there are a lot of people that vote in an election that don't pay those taxes, and they're going to vote for services that either will directly benefit them or that won't. And I don't think that that's fair. I just, and I think that ultimately it's our responsibility. We live in a republic. This isn't California. We don't just arbitrarily put things on the ballot just because people come out and say, it's your responsibility and we're owed this right to vote. No, you're not. You're owed the right to vote for us, and we decide ultimately. You can ask Ms. Bentley. I gave her a few items to possibly look at to put on the ballot, and it is like an act of Congress for a commissioner to get an item on the ballot. It takes months. It takes notification. It takes oversight by 3 independent legal counsel. It takes board approval. It takes a charter review. It's not just somebody saying, oh, I have the right to vote on this. And I think that, this isn't against kids. This isn't for kids. This is what I was elected to do, and I don't think that this is our responsibility. I think you should have gotten your signatures. You've had 28 years. 92 was denied, and you've had 26 years since then to state your case and to push your cause. And I don't think that. So I won't be supporting this. I don't think it should go on the ballot.
Commissioner Barfield?
Ms. Bentley, explain to us based on statute 125, explain to us what control the county does have on this, as far as audit, ability financials, any of that.
Well, it's an independent district, so you have very limited authority. They would set their own budget. Is that what you needed to know?
Yeah, but the funding would become within the county budget, though. Is that correct?
Well, it wouldn't be counted towards the charter cap,
Right.
because it's a separate independent body.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. This is hard. I listened to all of you guys on your audio meetings. I got copies of them, was able to listen in. And the compassion with your counsel was just overwhelming in your hearts. And Judge, you haven't got to listen to me much, but I got to listen to you, and I really grew fond of you very quickly. I have some heartburn with this, and let me tell you why. I know it's like let the voters to decide, but here's the thing. Is people count on us to, when we put it on, that we're agreeing with it. It's just the way it is. If you would have done a petition, would have been different. But, if I vote with this to okay this, and I was telling Mr. Raines this, people are going to consider that I've done due diligence and I've gotten comfortable with it. And I wanted to get comfortable with it, and you guys did a lot of work trying to appease some of the criteria that I was struggling with. But there's some things I still have struggles with on trying to support this. One of them is taxation without representation. If we're going to be taxing people with this amount of taxes, I think it probably would have been better to fall under the Board of the County Commissions. We get voted out if people just hate what we do, and sometimes you get voted out if they like what you do. But there's some representation there that people have control over. And Commissioner Isnardi brought up a few good points. With the independent district, there really isn't that control. So if we were to do this, and I do love children, I think we do have an issue in the United States right now with people not giving away more of the discretional funds, but that might be something that we need to change as a society and start teaching people this. I don't know, but you know, I work in a church, so we're very dependent on people's generosity there. From listening to the tapes, I also got a little concerned when one of the members had mentioned we're going to start with .33, and after it gets through the commission, gets voted through, we can raise it then after that. So I don't know about the amount of funds we're looking at. And I know you have $8 million, but the economy is growing, and it's going to grow. These funds are going to grow, and it could be substantially larger. The Lagoon Fund did the same thing. So on that, if there was an elected body that was watching over, I'd feel better. And then the plan you tried, but it's still so broad. You know, we have $8 million of it, and we have 913,000 going just to United Way. And I don't know the specifics of that. I checked the number. Sorry, I added all the United Way things together. And you know, I love ELC. I get to work with you a little bit out in the public world. Y'all do great services. And then I have another concern, because a lot of these entities are already getting money from federal tax funds, and it's substantial. And not that more doesn't need to go into it, but I would have liked a target, like let's address children's mental health issues. And you know, we've got a big problem with this. If we would have isolated that, you know, 3 years, we can take this amount of funds, get in, get out, and we're going to have a program in place to fix it. I probably would have been able to handle that a little bit better, but I'm really struggling with this. And so I don't know that I'm going to be able to support it today, but I do appreciate your hearts, and I really do believe we have to do more to reach out to our children and train parents. We got to fix the family system again, because as a society, people aren't raising their kids anymore. We're giving it to the school systems, we're giving it to organizations, and I think we got a lot of work to do, and I don't know how to fix all that. I have an area of concern that I have influence over, and there's some areas I don't. And if you guys would let me rule the world, I'll try to straighten it out. But I don't have that kind of power or authority. But this is hard for me. This is probably one of the hardest ones I've had to do. So all that, I'm turning it back over to Commissioner Barfield.
Yeah, what we need to understand, though, is the Florida statute 125-901 specifically gives us the authority to make that decision to put it on the ballot. And that's what this is. This is what this is all about. You know, this statute, we also have our charter. The statute also tells us we can go ahead and do that as a CSC. Also says that we have the authority through that to fund it. I mean, through the district to be able to fund it. So, you know, I'm going to be the one that puts it out there. May not get a second or whatever, but I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that we go ahead and adopt the resolution to allow a referendum for this subject.
Thank you, Commissioner Barfield. I have a motion on the table, sir. Yes?
Yes.
And do I have a second? Motion dies for a lack of second. Commissioners? Do I need a motion, Ms. Bentley?
It requires a majority vote to put it on the ballot, so if
Okay.
you do not vote, there is no motion to put it on the ballot.
Okay. Okay, I really want to thank you guys for all your work, and thank you, Judge. Appreciate you so much. God bless all of you. Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Tobias. We're on item I-1, unfinished business. County Manager, who do I need to open this, sir?
This item, Commissioners, deals with for Project Rainbow. It's a requirement to, they are requesting a waiver reduction for the qualified target industry resolution that you'll be looking at right after this item. The average salary for this particular project is $46,000. While it's higher than the average salary in this particular wage area, it's below the state average. Therefore, it needs a waiver of $46,000, and it was recommended through the EDC that the board consider that so that they could have the available grants that comes through the state for the Qualified Target Industry program. In that program, it's an 80-20 match, so the county, as you had heard earlier, would, through a tax abatement, give up to 20% as long as they meet the targets that the state establishes through that program.
Thank you, sir. Commission, what's your pleasure? Commissioner Tabaya?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there someone here from, I guess, the EDC that can address some questions concerning this?
I know he was here earlier. I don't see him in the room right now.
Madam Chair, I have some substantive questions dealing with state statute on this. And in the absence of EDC being here, I would make a motion that we table this for a later date.
Why don't we table it to the end of the meeting for right now? Okay. I'm just going to table this, or pull it down to the end of the meeting, and we're going to go ahead, see if they can't find someone to answer your questions, Commissioner. And we're going to go into new business, item J1.
Am I on? Good? Oh. All right. Good morning, Commissioners. This item is coming to you as a recommendation from your Tourist Development Council. It is a change to the Brevard County Tourist Development Tax Budget Plan Ordinance to allow a portion of funds from our Beach Improvement Fund, which receives 25% of the tourist development tax, to be used on the Indian River Lagoon related projects. The ability to use tourist development tax revenue, which is our local option sales tax on short-term lodging, primarily paid by tourists to the area, was enabled by a recent change to the state statute signed into law this past session by Governor Scott. This change enables the Tourism Lagoon Plan, which an outline was provided to you in your agenda packet. The change and plan makes available up to $1 million per year of tourist development tax for Indian River Lagoon related projects compliant with the state statute and having tourism impact. Beginning in this upcoming fiscal year, $1 million per year will be available. We have worked in conjunction with the Save Our Indian River Lagoon plan, Virginia Barker, and the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program, Dwayne DeFries, in developing this plan outline. The annual amount of $1 million is subject to full funding of the first priority in this fund, which is beach improvement and maintenance projects, which have inherent uncertainty related to weather events. The IRL project funding allocation may not be used to finance projects with multi-year debt obligation because of that. Up to 10% of the funds may be used for communications related to Indian River Lagoon specific tourism marketing and public information. Projects over $50,000 require matching funds at a minimum ratio of 1 to 3 or 300% match from non-county sources. This is consistent with the leverage that our current beach improvement funds generate through federal and state programs. A competitive grant program utilizing these funds will be established under the Tourist Development Council's Beach Committee with an annual approval by the TDC of grant program policies and procedures and project grant awards. Projects with awards greater than $100,000 must be approved by this commission. Projects must demonstrate a benefit to the health of the Indian River Lagoon and a positive impact to Brevard County tourism. The focus of the projects will be shoreline restoration and protection, shoreline causeway and litter control, improved and sustainable recreational access, support for sport fishing and wildlife viewing through marine life monitoring and habitat restoration, water quality testing related to tourism, promotion and special events, and public information and education. By leveraging with matching funds, the plan has the potential for $40 million in Indian River Lagoon projects over the next 10 years. The match provides that leverage. You may have heard last week Congressman Posey's office announced $1.5 million in federal funds available for national estuaries, estuaries in need, which the Indian River Lagoon is one of 3. So we expect to be able to match with those federal funds. In addition, we've had conversations with Florida Inland Navigation District and expect some projects to be able to be matched with those state funds. And then even at a recent ICAST trade show, we had interest from corporate sponsors about participating in some projects with those private dollars as they seek to demonstrate their commitment to sustainable fisheries and outdoor recreation. The Tourist Development Council unanimously approved this change on Friday, July the 13th. This action requested today is to approve the advertising of legislative intent for this ordinance change. This requires a simple majority for this action, and then it comes back after 2 weeks to this commission for full authorization, which will require a supermajority to approve and enact the changes.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve this legislative intent.
Oh, we have a card. Miss Laura Lee Thompson, can you hold the, well,
Sure.
come on up. And then Commissioner Smith, I'll allow you to make that motion as soon as Ms. Thompson speaks. How are you doing, Laura Lee?
I'm good. I'm Laura Lee Thompson, 3550 Irwin Avenue, Mims, Florida, and I'm the chair of the Beach Improvement Committee. And it's our fund that this money's going to be coming out of. Our committee is made up of professionals from the scientific community and community leaders, and we've been talking about this prospect for way over a year. And in fact, I've been talking about it for 20 years. No, 19. I've been on the TDC for 19 years. I've wanted to be able to use beach money for the lagoon ever since I set foot in the door. So I'm really glad that this opportunity's come up. We're proud of the proposal, but now I want to address some of the criticism that's been directed at our TDC for the last year. It's been insinuated that we're selfish and greedy and that we don't want to do anything to help the lagoon. People can have their opinions and they can think we're selfish and greedy, but to say that we don't want to do anything to help clean the lagoon could not be further from the truth. Clean water is the foundation for our economy and our way of life here in Brevard County, and we're fortunate to have a targeted response to deal with decades of accumulated pollution. The halfpenny lagoon tax generates $40 to $50 million a year for lagoon improvement projects. An estimated 30% of that money comes from visitors to the county. The TDT tax collects $15 million a year. By law, just under half of that money is to be spent on marketing the county, and that ensures that visitors keep on coming. The other half is spent on staff salaries and community projects and the zoo and the cultural community and making sure that we have good beaches, because beaches are critical for protection from storm events and for sea turtle nesting. We have like the #1 beach in the world for loggerhead sea turtles. Sea turtles don't nest in sand dunes. They can't climb up eroded escarpments to nest. You have to have decent beaches for sea turtle nesting. So do we really want to take money away from the zoo and our cultural partners and stop doing projects to keep tourism strong in the county? I'm not an economist or a math expert, but to me it makes no sense to do anything that will negatively impact the $2 billion source of income from tourists in order to take a little bit of money that could potentially be used on the lagoon. We're much better off to let tourism do its job, contributing 30% of the halfpenny Indian River Lagoon tax than to pick the tourism development tax apart. We initially opposed the changes to the TDT tax because of the rhetoric and the way that the tourism community was attacked and the way that it was insinuated that all of the money could be used for sewer repairs. That's simply not true.
I'm sorry,
Brevard,
ma'am. Do you have a few more minutes
Oh,
to
I'm
go?
out?
Or? Yeah.
No. We support this version, and we hope that you guys will approve it and move forward. Thank you.
Ma'am. I have a motion on the table. Can I have a second for discussion? Second. Second by Commissioner Barfield. Commissioner Tabaya? Sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just got a couple questions here for the sponsor of this according to our agenda, and that would be Commissioner Smith. It's regarding a November 9th article in the Florida Today. You mentioned Representative Fine, quote, is short-sighted and long-winded. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You said you believe by trying to direct money away from tourism-related capital projects that were vetted by the Brevard County TDC, Fine would be discouraging tourists from coming to the Space Coast. Finally, you said Fine should, quote, stay in his own lane and deal with statewide issues in Tallahassee rather than trying to interfere with the local tourism industry. My question is simple. Do you still stand by these comments?
I said them, and I said them, and I don't take them back. You have some more?
Well, let's not do a dialogue back and forth.
You know, I made the motion, and you're not Perry Mason, I'm not a criminal, and I'm not on trial. So I think we need to move on with this.
Madam Chair?
Let's do this, gentlemen. Let's go ahead and finish comments, and I'll move them over. And let's try not to get personal, but to stay on topic. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I don't intend to get personal. I'm just citing exactly what was reported in our paper. Mr. Ridenour, and I appreciate the previous speaker coming up here and mentioning that TDC changed, and Mr. Ridenour referred to this act by Representative Fine as criminal, and he came back and apologized for that, and I thought that was very, very big of him. I hope that Commissioner Smith, with changing his opinion 180 degrees, pays the same respect to Representative Fine that the hardworking Mr. Ridenour did to Mr. Fine by recognizing that, in fact, his efforts to fund the lagoon is what is allowing this to take place. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. I'm just going to interject a comment with that. I'm glad we're able to have discretion, home rule of being able to change funds if we want to, recommend it by the Tourist Development Council. That's good. I'm not sure that I would have enjoyed moving some of the funds off of capital projects because they're stimulating tourism, which Ms. Thompson kind of gave us a good overview of $2 billion into our economy, and that's quite a hunk of change here. It's keeping us from having to pay state taxes and other types of taxes that we enjoy not having to do. So I think part of that, get it into context a little bit, although I'm thankful with what Mr. Fine did as far as changing that. That's good. I don't know that I would have voted against the TDC's recommendation for the capital projects either. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for all of you people to recognize the personal attacks that I continue to get from the Commissioner at the other end of this table. It's been going on for almost 2 years, and I suspect it'll go on for at least another 5 or 6 weeks. So I apologize to all of you for him. So getting on to this point, as most everyone knows, I have a real passion for the Indian River Lagoon, and I'm extremely happy that the TDC has worked with me to come up with this plan. I think the Indian River Lagoon plan is a strong one, and we're doing excellent things with it. And to add another $1 million to the till with matching funds, I think we will all benefit, and certainly tourism will benefit, the Indian River Lagoon will benefit, and all of our citizens will benefit. So again, I'm extremely happy, and my thanks go to the TDC for everything that they do for this county. And this is just one more example of how hard they work for us.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Tobias, New Light.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is just a follow-up. Thank you, Commissioner Smith, for bringing this forward. I do greatly appreciate it. My question is, why are you asking us to enshrine the lagoon in our code of ordinances as a second-tier priority?
I'm sorry, sir. Who are you directing that to, Mr.?
Commissioner Smith. He said he worked hard on this. So my question was, why are we putting it in the Code of Ordinance as a second-tier priority?
I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to indulge in these personal attacks. It's beneath me, and if one of the commissioners wants to be childish, he can be childish by himself.
Madam Chair, in the ordinance itself...
I think we're going to take a 5-minute break here and come back at 11:10. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, and if I'd have known that asking tough questions would have gotten us breaks, I would have been doing this a long time ago. Just on page 2 of this ordinance, I'm only asking of what's in black and white here. It says that this will come as, quote, second priority. My question, hopefully we got the answer in that 5 minutes there. Why?
Well, the good news is I did ask Eric if he would explain it to us, and
Sure.
he said he'd be glad to.
Yeah, in trying to craft this plan and the deliberations through the Beach Committee and the Tourist Development Council, it was recognized that the original intent of this fund was to take care of our beach maintenance projects, which are quite significant. And these are the only local funds that are used for that purpose and enable the match from the state and federal government. So without those beach funds, we have no beach improvement program. Therefore, that had to be protected as the original purpose of this fund. And also, there's great uncertainty with those projects given the weather. So it's simply to recognize that those beach funds was the original purpose of this allocation, and that without those, you do not have a beach improvement program. And also recognizing that the Indian River Lagoon, through the half-penny sales tax, has a core program of work at somewhere around $40 million a year, and that this $1 million a year, even though it's leveraged to be potentially $4 million a year, is still much smaller than that and is complementary to that program.
Thank you, sir.
One final follow-up, and I guess if I want answers, I'm going to go with Mr. Garvey over here. Can you explain the restrictions that are put on this if we truly want to make this, well, I don't say a first tier, but a second tier here? Why are we putting the 3-to-1 match on this and the various other requirements that quite frankly aren't on many of your other expenditures?
Yeah, the 3-to-1 match was discussed at quite a length at the Tourist Development Council level, and it was brought out that if we're redirecting the beach improvement funds, which are generally leveraged at that ratio, 3-to-1, the federal government pitches in basically half, and then the state pitches in half of our half. So it's a 3-to-1 leverage, that it would be prudent to maintain that leverage if you're redirecting those beach funds to other projects. So that was the thinking behind requiring that 3-to-1 match.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Madam Chair, I'd like to call a question.
Okay, I have a call to question. I do want to make one comment, though. I'm sorry, I'm a female, but I'm kind of glad we're doing this because we don't have beach in District 1, but we have shoreline, and we have significant shoreline where our city and county, our district likes to play, and we're losing it from the wave action from the river. So I'm excited that we're able to do this.
And Madam Chair, if I could just say one last thing, I want to acknowledge the hard work of Mike McGarry, who manages our beach program. He is extremely skilled at working with the Army Corps of Engineers, and the only reason this was possible was because of his work to leverage project timing based on the recent storm events. Saved us a ton of money, and his financial director, Paula, and mine, Stacy Delano, worked together to get the numbers set to enable this project. So I want to just make sure that they get recognized for their hard work in putting this together.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work, and thank you for sponsoring it. Calling the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you. And we have Mr. Weiner back, I believe. So we're going to go ahead and go back to item I1. Mr. Tabaya, you did have questions on this, sir.
I did, Madam Chair, and thank you for holding this until Mr. Weiner was able to get back.
Commissioner Tabaya.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Weiner, thank you for being here, and thank you for coming to my office. I'm sorry I didn't get back to you with some of the follow-ups, but I'm sure you can handle these. You're requesting a waiver. Is that in accordance to Florida Statute 288.106? Is that correct?
I don't know the statute. There's a procedure. The procedure generally is that if you're going to seek qualified targeted industry incentive and you have a wage rate that is less than 125% of the current, which is the Brevard County minimum, and then 125% of that, there is a pathway whereby you ask the state to provide a wage waiver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Follow-up?
Most certainly.
The wage waiver has nothing to do with...
My follow-up question is, help me here. You said 125%, but
Right.
I'm looking at what I have down here in the staff analysis, and it looks like 115%. Can you help me? Is it in fact 125, or is it 115?
I've got to do it from memory. The file that I had with me earlier when I thought that this matter had concluded, I took back to the office, and then I sort of ran out. It's either 115 or 125. The point of the matter is the stated wage is insufficient to generate QTI in the absence of a waiver. So the precise amount is, I think, of less functional importance here. The point of the matter is you have a wage rate that requires a waiver in order for the project to be eligible for QTI. Whether it misses by $1 or it misses by $9,000, it doesn't matter functionally.
Madam Chair, follow-up? I think you're misinterpreting state statute. State statute 288.106 says that's the first part, but the second part is an or. It's below the state average wage. So my question to this is, because if it meets the state average wage, right, we don't even need a waiver. So
That's not it's not my understanding. I'm not an attorney. Okay, and in the past, this has come up. Look, this has come up a couple of times in the past. The guidance we have gotten from Enterprise Florida, who administers the program, is that if you don't meet the threshold requirement, that you need to seek a wage waiver. The state average wage is, you probably have it in front of you. What is it, 43 and change?
That's your job. It's not,
what's your point that you're trying to make?
My point is very simple, and I'll read 288.106.
Okay.
Even though you said you're familiar with it. The legislature further finds higher wage job reduce the state's share of hidden costs such as public assistance and subsidized health care associated with low wage jobs. Therefore, the legislature declares that it's policy of the state to encourage growth of high wage jobs and diverse economic base, provided state refunds to qualified target industries, business that originate or expand in the state or that relocate the state. So it goes on to say the state statute may pay an estimated average wage equal to or at least 115. That one I did do my work. Or the average private sector wage in the area where the business is to be located. So my question is, I'm trying to help you out here. I'm not trying to be confrontational here. I'm trying to help you do your job better. What is the state, because we don't need a waiver, and you laugh, but let me help you out here, because my follow-up question, this is very serious. And I take this serious enough that I stay before I don't leave when I have multiple things up on the agenda. But understand, if it meets the statewide average in that you don't even need a waiver, and the state doesn't have to grant that waiver. So my question is very simple. Is this above the statewide average as outlined in state statute?
I guess the question I have is why the state's saying we need it. Look, I'm not going to, I didn't come prepared to debate the merits of the statute, or not the merits, but the tenets of the statute. The state has told us we need to get a waiver on this. Now, you have read it. I understand what you said. You have me at a slight disadvantage because I didn't bring every file from the office. There are lots of numbers, sir, to remember. Okay, and if I really need it, I can look it up. Memorizing them doesn't score any points, doesn't close any deals. Okay, functionally, what does it matter here? Tell me what the essence of it is.
Oh, I agree. I agree you did not come prepared on this one. Your numbers are completely off, the ones that you fictitiously make up. The ones that I asked for, you're correct, you don't have. And I'm trying to help you out by reading state tax. I understand you're not an attorney, and neither am I. Okay. I'm just trying to help you out because the state does not have to grant this waiver. So if we have a way to get this business these incentives without going through the process of this waiver, I would think that would help out, you know, the folks that are trying to receive this money.
First of all, from a functional standpoint, the way project works, a non-event, these things normally go simultaneously. We don't make up the rules. We work with the state, and when the state says you need to get a waiver, we get the waiver. I don't try and pull out the statute and argue the merits of it.
Do you have follow up?
And you may be correct. It's the first time that it's come up. I'm not saying you're incorrect. Okay?
Oh, I'm just reading statutes, so I'll tell you right now, I'm 100% correct. I'm not making up any of the numbers here. I'll be more than willing to share statute with you.
The way this works, sir, is the commission either is supportive of the waiver request or it isn't. If the commission decides not to support it, the state would not go forward. So if based on what you're saying, the commission chooses not to support it, then we will report that back to the state, and the state will act accordingly. We're not going to talk the state out of what they tell us needs to be done.
Okay. Madam Chair, follow-up. I did not receive the state documentation.
Let me say Enterprise Florida.
Enterprise Florida's demand or mandate on this waiver. Do you happen to have a copy of that?
These are conversations that take place. We don't approach each other with lawyers' letters.
Let me follow up, Madam Chair. You have no documentation, zero documentation that this. When I have statute here that says we can get around this waiver, but the best you can have is you got a call from Enterprise Florida. May I ask who you spoke with at Enterprise Florida?
We discuss each project as it impacts a request for state statute. Okay. And they have their rules. They have their, we could, I suppose. I mean, I'll take a look at it when I get back to the office. I agree that, I don't know what you're looking for from me. I really don't.
Mr. Tobias, let me ask you just a question.
You want me to concede the point?
Hold on, Mr. Weiner. Mr. Tobias, what you're saying, though, is that this will qualify even if we didn't give them a waiver?
Madam Chair, I'm just reading statute, which clearly
is that what you're thinking?
The EDC has not, and the statute says. Let me read statute real quickly.
Right, but is that your end position?
Absolutely correct. And
okay.
I was asking the simple question. It says may pay an estimated annual wage equaling at least 115, it's 115, not 125. That number you should probably memorize. In the area where the business is to be located, or, that word is very, very, very important, or the statewide private sector average wage. So if this $46,000 is above the statewide private sector wage, we wouldn't need. And he's mentioning this is the first time they've done it. Well,
No,
let's get it
it's not
let's
the
get
first-
it let's get it right.
This is not
Let's get it right the first time.
This is not the first time we've asked for a wage waiver. This is the first time this has come up with this level of detailed questions. It's not a frequent occurrence, but it has happened in the past.
So Madam Chair, that is, because there's no guarantee that the state has to accept this waiver. If it does, my reading of statute is meet that minimum, then we don't even have to placate them with this waiver. It automatically meets the qualifications. I'm trying to, I'm trying to help Mr. Weiner out. He clearly was not.
Are you supportive of the company getting the QTI? I mean, is that something?
See, here's how it works.
Yeah, you ask the
I ask the questions. You do your best to try to answer them by doing your due diligence. So that's the way it works. Madam Chair, it's not meant. I do not mean this insulting. I do not mean this any way. I would request that we table this. We give Mr. Weiner more time to do his due diligence, maybe speak with someone who can help explain state statute to him,
Sir, I have
get us
already
some
done that.
averages. Excuse me, I'm speaking. And bring this back, and we can look at this in a way that maybe we don't have to go forward with this waiver.
Was that a motion, sir?
Yes, I'd like to make that motion, Madam
I
Chair.
have a motion to table on the board. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Isnardi. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
It fails being tabled, 3-2, so we'll continue. Commissioner Smith?
So it's been
Mr. Weiner, I have a question for you. You said the state asked you verbally, either in person or on a phone call, that said that you have to meet this requirement?
Right.
Okay, so, end of story. It's not your opinion, they asked, so that's why you're here. I know you're not here because you just like getting beat up. You're here because they asked you to proceed. So let's proceed. I will make a motion to approve this.
Okay, I do have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, I question, though, because Commissioner Isnardi still wants to answer the question, too. So if we approve the waiver, didn't need the waiver, it's not going to make any difference. It's probably just a safety to do it, even if, I mean, it's not going to hurt anything to do it today.
If it turns out that for some reason we didn't need the waiver.
This won't make
then
any
it
difference.
won't make any difference.
So this keeps it moving forward.
Exactly.
Exactly. Commissioner Isnardi?
And I'm not even opposed to the waiver. I just wish it was a little more organized. And again, maybe you weren't prepared for us to ask questions, but it's interesting. I mean, if we're
I wasn't prepared, not to interrupt, but I wasn't prepared to have a discussion in detail about this particular statute.
But I'm a little surprised that you don't know what the average wage is in the private sector if you're an EDC guy, but that's...
I mean, it's hanging up on my wall, and I mean, I don't necessarily memorize it. I think the average wage for the state is $43,000 and change. Brevard's average wage is slightly higher, and I believe that Enterprise Florida's interpretation of the statute you refer to is that it isn't so much the state, it's the average wage in your county. And so what you have to do is get to the 115% of your county wage. Now, that may be an invalid interpretation of the law, but that is what Enterprise Florida has always put forward.
But it would be nice to know, either through legal opinion or through some sort of at least more complete evidence, whether or not we even need to do this. I think asking for a wage waiver, I mean, and obviously you said you don't have it in writing. I just want it to be clean. I want it to...
I understand that. You're not granting the wage waiver. You're agreeing, what you're basically doing is expressing your support should the state decide to agree to it. You are not providing the wage waiver.
Right.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
I just wish it was more organized or maybe better answers or something.
I mean, I don't know how much longer we have. If I can make a quick, I don't find this as humorous as you do. I just don't see where the fun of it is. There are thousands of numbers. We're a relatively small staff. You know what I do, sir? I focus on what matters. There is no test about whether it's 43,323 or 45,624. In the scheme of things, it doesn't really matter in terms of getting projects done.
I think, okay, Commissioner Tobias.
Madam Chair, I take this very seriously, and that's why I did my homework. Yes, I did chuckle. I'm sorry, I'm a teacher, and if I had a quarter for every time I heard someone say I didn't do my homework, I would be a very, very rich man. So yes, I'm used to my students doing it. I am unfortunately not used to people coming up here and asking. The CSC was up here. They did their homework.
I didn't know an answer to two of your questions, and you're drawing a conclusion I don't necessarily agree with.
Madam Chair, can I call a question, please?
I just remember that
this board is just getting out of control.
$1.4 million went to this organization for not being prepared with basic statute. 115 versus 125, what statewide average is. That's all I'm doing is pointing that out, Madam Chair. So I would second Commissioner Smith's motion to call the question.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 3-2 with Commissioners Isnardi and Tobias in objection.
Thank you.
I think we have another one with you, Mr. Weiner. We have part 2.
All these are all grouped together. It's the first time they've ever been spread apart. So.
Project Rainbow. County Manager, are you leading us in?
Yeah, this is the Qualified Targeted Industry Resolution.
Okay, Commissioners, what's your pleasure? I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5. Oop. Sorry, you got that in just the nick of time. It passes 4-1 with Commissioner Tobias in objection. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we are at item J2. I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do J5 first for the Vieira Company. Are you here, sir? Just so that we can get you back to your office real quick, because this next item is going to be pretty long. And so item J5, it was the add-on that you threw in that normally doesn't go in this area.
Good morning. I'm Ben Wilson, Associate Corporate Counsel from the Vieira Company. I'm here just in case the commissioners or staff have any questions about our plat.
Tad, sir?
Yes, this is a request in accordance with Section 622841I that the Board of County Commissioners grant final plat approval and authorize the chairman to sign the final plat for Tracto at Vieira North PUD. This approval, it comes to you with a condition that's a little bit different than what we typically have, and this was just in an effort to facilitate some of their development needs. And that condition is that the completion to the repairs to the existing sidewalk are made as applicable prior to the plat being recorded.
Thank you, sir. Commission, do I have a motion?
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We are now moving into item J2. And Mr. Denninghoff, is this yours?
I'll start with
okay.
this one, Commissioner. Commissioners, back on April 26th, 2018, I asked the county's internal auditors, RSM, to perform an audit of the Valkyria Airport. That was in response to a variety of complaints and concerns that had been raised over the prior several months. The results of that audit were submitted to the board immediately upon receipt within the next day or so. That was back on June 6th. Among the items in the report and recommendations, staff began, both the airport manager and our assistant county manager over the airport, Mr. Denninghoff, began to address a variety of the concerns that were raised. And other staff member, Kathy Wall, in the county manager's office, also became involved in trying to address a variety of issues that were out there. There were several issues that required additional attention beyond what we started to do, including potentially looking at whether or not we should make modifications to the board's policy and controlling documents. There was an issue, there's also issues related to the waiting list and all things that were under consideration and are under consideration currently. Of those, there were, in addition to that, there were two items that we believe that we needed to bring back to the board so that we can get everything else in a package together for the board's consideration. In terms of controlling documents, the board policy relating to the airport, those two areas involve subleasing, that issue as it relates to the current existing lease agreements, and tenant aircraft ownership related to the leases. I'm going to turn it over to John Denninghoff, who has worked extremely long hours to try to address this and make sure he had a complete picture and in the package that we put together for the board to be able to look at all the options that were there so that staff would have very clear direction in how to put a package together for the board's consideration with any modifications or updates that may be appropriate.
Yes, Commissioners, several of these items sort of intermingle or intertwine with one another, and so we needed board direction in order to be able to get it all sorted out. Regarding the first of the two issues that we need board direction on, the first one is about subleasing. Currently, the leases themselves prohibit subleasing by any of the tenants, and over time there was some examples of subleasing which had evolved. Almost all of those have been straightened out and corrected, with one exception. So the issue about subleasing is an important one for a variety of reasons. I've listed them in Exhibit A which is the first attachment on the agenda report. I wanted to go over a couple of those. In order to properly evaluate this, we sought both county attorney input as well as bond counsel input. And the reason bond counsel input is necessary is that the hangar construction costs have been leveraged through the issuance of bonds, and they're municipal tax-free bonds. With that bond issue is a total of about $20 million worth of other debts besides things that have nothing to do with the airport, and they're all mingled together. And so this becomes an important issue that we that we qualify for the tax-free status of those bonds. And so we needed bond counsel input. When we described the issue to him, he was concerned, and he expressed his concerns, and that's attached as another exhibit on the agenda report. The best we could get him to say was that it may not be, but it may be a problem with the IRS. And that problem, if the IRS were to determine that there was a problem, would require that the county would then be liable for the tax costs for all the bondholders, as well as penalties and interest for all of those, for the full $20 million bond issue, not just the portion that would be for the Valkyria Airport. So that was a big issue. The reason it's an issue for the bonds is because the requirement for the tax-free was that the hangars would be reasonably available to the public. And subleasing is not controlled by the county, it's controlled by the tenant. and therefore the public is not have access to being able to occupy a hangar through that mechanism. The mechanism we use is the wait list, and so with the wait list being in effect circumvented by subleasing, that calls into question the reasonable availability to the public, and thus the bond question becomes an issue. In addition to that, there's a concern under FAA rules about accessibility of the public to being able to have leases at the hangars, and that's through their grant assurances that we have. In recent years, we've had about $20 million worth of grants that we've received from the FAA, which require us to have, well, there's grant assurances that are there, which include the reasonable availability of the public to be able to get leases. In order to qualify for that, we can basically the leases eventually become 30-day leases that can be terminated in a 30-day time period, so there's not any long-term leases of the hangars. There's other issues that come up with you have subleasing that become an issue for the FAA, revenue diversion if there's profit being made by a leaseholder through subtenants. That profit's not coming to the airport. That violates FAA rules. There's a rule that says that we have to have we have to reasonably shorten the time or keep short the time for tenants or the public to be able to get a hangar. That doesn't mean we throw somebody out. What it means is they have to wait their turn, but they have to have a turn. And so again, it comes back to that wait list. And sort of the last things are lack of control of activities on the airport, and then insurance liabilities associated with those activities. You can well imagine that there's liability associated with activities on any county property, and so we normally require $1 million worth of liability insurance for every tenant. And we've discovered that subtenants may not have that $1 million policy, and it would be very, very difficult for us to maintain control of that. Also, there's security issues that would come up. So what we've done is we've kind of boiled all that down into sort of three options. Obviously, there's a fourth option, which would be board direction. The first option would be to bar any additional subleasing and try to sort of create an opportunity for existing subtenants to become tenants. The problem with this approach is that it still could subject us to all the same problems that we would have that I've already outlined. Clearly, it's not as bad as if we were allowing it to go on wholesale throughout the airport on all the hangars, but it still does have some of those very same issues. Second would be to just have us enforce the existing rules, the existing lease, and compel the violators or unauthorized activity to vacate the airport. Another option would be just to allow the subleasing, but then we have all the issues that we just had, and they would be fairly severe. One that I didn't bring up is that would be a outside or third party could claim discrimination against the county, that we were disregarding the wait list and were then allowing other people preferential treatment through the circumvention of the wait list. And so that would be not through the FAA, although it could be, but it could be a completely third party. So those are the options that you have as far as the subleasing. The other associated question is hangar aircraft ownership. The ownership of the aircraft, if you don't own it, then you must be leasing it or subleasing it, and so that question comes up. And so we just want to get direction regarding that as to whether we enforce the rules the way we have them or have some sort of tolerance at some level for that ownership.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, we have cards. Do you have any comments before we begin? Commissioner Tabaya?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple for background. How many hangars do we have at the Grant Valcaria Airport?
We have 71 hangars that are currently available for leasing.
Okay. And you mentioned a wait list. Can you tell me how many are on that wait list, and roughly, I know it's hard to tell whether renewals are, but how long someone towards the end of the wait list in your best estimate would have to wait in order, to get one?
Currently, we have the 71 hangars that are available, and if in several months we'll have another 24, but there's 274 slots currently in the wait list that people have supplied. We can have more. All you have to do is sign up, but we've got 274 that have signed up, and there are no vacancies at this point. We've had people that have waited between 7 and 9 years for the opportunity to get a hangar, and I don't know what the latest one waited, but it can be pretty lengthy.
Thank you. I just want to make one quick statement moving forward. I talked to our county attorney, Ms. Bentley, with this, and I know there's FAA problems. I have big heartburns over the bond issue that we put out and somebody subleasing and running a business in there. And, you said the IRS might not. IRS, well, they're not bad guys, but they want their tax funds, and that is a very critical issue as we're moving forward. Mr. Joseph Pinto, you're first, sir, and Colleen Kern, you'll be second if you'll come to the front and be ready. Sorry? Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak. I'm a retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 survivor, and I was hurt and put out on disability due to injuries incurred during that day.
Would you tell me your name and address, please, real quick?
It's Joseph DePinto, 2019 Winbrook Drive, Southeast Palm Bay, Florida. Valcaria Airport, what can I say? As far as some of your questions about the list, I've been on the list for 5 years. I just recently obtained a hangar. I have 2 aircraft in there. And the list works, okay? As far as the subleasing, my complaint would be that it would force the list or people on the list to wait longer, all right? As far as the FAA and all the other restrictions, that's something for you people to decide. I can tell you this, Steve Borowski, in my mind, is a very fair, honest individual. He encourages a lot of community-minded events. I run the Valcaria radio-controlled racetrack that's at the airport that encourages families, children, fathers, daughters, fathers, sons to enjoy some time together in hobbies. There's also RC planes there, there's boats, there's helicopters, and FPVs. So the Boy Scouts are there, there's canoeing. They used to have in the lake. Now the lake is under construction, so I don't know how much longer it'll be before they can get back to some of those events. As far as, like I said, leasing to other individuals, I feel that it's not fair to the people on the list. I know that one in particular individual, and they're all friends of mine, both for and against this subject. Pio Air is looking to sublease it, and they run a business out of there. And whether or not that's something legal or not is none of my concern. All I can say is that I don't think that anybody should be in there subleasing a hangar because it jeopardizes the rest of us from having the opportunity to lease one. Other than that, the improvements in the airport, I've been here since December of '07. The improvements in the airport are phenomenal. The amount of money that has been brought into the area to renovate it and to bring more revenues, I think, is second to none. I think Mr. Borowski has done a tremendous job in managing the airport, and I hope that he continues on the path that he's on and to bring more updated equipment and better the facility. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Walter Hewitt, Bruce Black, you'll be next, sir.
Walter Hewitt, 452 San Luis Street, Southwest, Palm Bay. I'm here to tell you that if you decide anything other than line item 2 in Exhibit A, that it will be ending up costing this county, which I don't want to see, because that's out of my pocket as well. Because the FAA will have complaints because of unfair to the people that are on the list. And that will lead into the IRS problem that you have. And so with that said, I don't see how the council can vote in doing anything other than that. There is no option at this time. Now, maybe going forward, advising people that go on the list afterwards, you can change that. But at this time, you're opening yourself for a lot of liability. And it will happen. I can assure you of that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bruce Black, Wes Yonker, you'll be next, please, if you come towards the front.
Good afternoon. Bruce Black, 405 Avenue A, Melbourne Beach, Florida. The airport's a great place. You heard by the list of 250, and the improvements that the airport manager has made it a wannabe airport. That's why we have 250. I like the waiting list, other than the fact that it's going to take me 4 or 5 years to get into a hangar. There's people of all various backgrounds, economic status. There's president of an airline that has a hangar there. There's just ordinary people. So it works. By changing this, I was surprised to see there was pending decision of a revision. The hangar in question, it's a large hangar, bigger than most everyone there. That requires more dollars. So, maybe it's that he's having trouble paying his rent, so he wants to do that. So there's been a sublease problem. I just don't think that you should reward bad behavior and change it to let that existing situation stay. There's rules, and if you don't want to follow by the rules, you do something to change it, whether it's get petitions, do whatever it is, but just to outwardly reward that individual for his bad behavior just doesn't seem right to me. We need more hangars there. All of those projects have been funded by the airport. They haven't come out of the general fund. So I would hope that you would think and not to reward bad behavior, keep it there. And I like the provision of having aircraft ownership. Then there wouldn't have to be the problem of somebody doing something and trying to run another business out of there. Let's keep it an aviation community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wes Yonke and Chris Larson, you'll be next, sir, if you come forward.
Good morning, Commissioners. Wes Yonke, 1055 Daytona Drive, Palm Bay. Thank you for your efforts with regard to managing Brevard County and also Valcarry Airport. I, and I'm sure other pilots based at Valcarry Airport and those who use it, like the direction our airport manager has taken the airport. We have a new terminal building. It's in process, and all that will come with that. New hangars that are being built, and also the updating and paving of runway 1432. The airport is growing, and the airport staff is doing a great job managing the property in a positive way, ethically, also during a very challenging environment. Valcarry Airport is much different than it was 5 years ago, and with the changes that are happening, it will become a showcase for Florida aviation. Commissioners, with regard to the subleasing, I would strongly recommend that you support the current language in the current lease, not allowing subleasing or co-leasing. Subleasing of hangars is discriminating for those on the hangar wait list and also creates numerous pitfalls for airport security and safety. It is obvious that there is high demand for hangars as the wait list is extensive, as we've discussed, and there is no tie-down spaces. We have a great flying community at Valkyrie Airport. It is my hope that Valkyrie Airport will remedy the subleasing hangar wait list situation by not allowing the practice. Thank you again. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chris Larson. Michael Freeman, you'll be next, sir, if you'd come towards the front.
Good morning. My name is Chris Larson. I'm a hangar leasing tenant and owner of a small business based at Valkyrie Airport. I have relationships with a large number of the other tenants as well as others that frequent the airport, allowing me the advantage in this case today to hear firsthand nearly every individual side and opinion relating to the subject at hand today. I have had personal and business relationships with some of the very visible parties represented here today, including that I was a past member of Aero Valkyria Flying Club, whom has a legitimate complaint for being evicted for subleasing while others on the airport have not. Interestingly, I'm also currently an aircraft rental customer of Pi Aero, who has individuals representing them here today as well. In listening to the information for many months that brought us here today, as late as last night, I continued to wonder how and why this topic has been on the table for so long. All of the tenants at Valkyrie Airport, including myself, read and signed a hangar lease agreement. That hangar lease agreement is typical, it's reasonable, and it's fair. In execution of that lease agreement, we all agreed to the parameters of that document. Given all of the options and facts from the parties involved with this subject, I believe and will respectively submit to you today that the position of Brevard County is not difficult. And as complicated as some of the parties have made this, I respectfully submit to you that your position can be simple. The county doesn't need to be the good guys or the bad guys in this case. You don't need to align with any party or choose sides. The county should simply just enforce its lease agreement that every hangar tenant agreed to when they signed that lease. That would be reasonable and fair to everyone that's involved. It would reflect the parties that have already been rightfully evicted for subleasing that Brevard County does not discriminate or show favoritism to any group or individual, that the county takes these and that the county takes these lease agreements seriously and will enforce the parameters of those agreements if necessary. If apparently a vote on the part of the commissioners is in fact required, and to be completely honest, I'm not sure why that even is. I believe the only fair and reasonable choices are a vote on option 2 on the sublease option, and on option 1, the aircraft owner, and option 1 of the aircraft ownership satisfies the parameter of the airport lease in its entirety. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Michael Freeman, Frank Gallagher, you'll be next, sir, if you'd come towards the front.
Good morning. Michael Freeman, 1170 River Drive, Palm Bay. Commissioner Tobias is my representative. So, this gentleman said everything I was going to say, so I'm just going to say that I support the leases as they are, which does not allow subleasing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gallagher, Greg Hish, you'll be next, sir, if you'd come towards the front.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Frank Gallagher. I live at 1721 Bennigan Way here in Vieira. First off, I want to thank you for the efforts you have made and with the airport manager and the county manager to make Valkyria truly a wonderful place. I have been affiliated there since 2003, and I am the owner of the Aero Club Valkyria, which I established in 2010. And because we have the facility we have, you allow us to do our aviation activities, but more importantly, we've made that facility a real resource for the county. 10 years ago, I remember the situation was a little different when we fought for the airport. So it's a facility we're all proud of. My flying club consists of 20 to 30 members and between 4 to 5 aircraft. And the biggest problem I have is growing because of the lack of facilities, i.e. lots of hangars. So this next row of hangars you're putting up is very appreciated. I wrote all of you, and it's Exhibit F1, letters, and I sent all of you emails about a situation that occurred about forcing subleasing. A gentleman on the hangar who was a personal friend had an open hangar. I put one of my club aircraft in there. I was not aware I was subleasing, but after the county conducted an inspection back in January, February, I was informed by the airport manager that I was subleasing. I removed my aircraft. But what I found since is Pyero has been allowed to continue subleasing. So one of my requests is that you enforce your current rules, which is stated in paragraph 2, subparagraph B, disallowing subleasing at the airport. Looking through the agenda items for today, you have that audit by RSM. You also have county legal stating and giving 6 good reasons why the county does not want to do subleasing. And I support all those. I ask you, please, there's no good reason to allow subleasing at this point, and follow the guidance that's been presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Greg Hish, Christopher Niles, you'd be next, sir, if you'd come towards the front.
I guess I am the perpetrator of choice. I am from Pyero, the ones that's been claimed of subletting with respects to Hangar 71.
Would you list your name and address, please, sir?
Greg Hish, 113 Mullet Creek, Melbourne Beach, Florida.
Thank you.
Okay? The problem is you've been given a disservice by the individuals up there saying there's 71 hangars at Valkyria, which in fact there are. There are only 5 large hangars that can accommodate more than 1 aircraft. How many people in this room can afford more than 1 aircraft to put in a particular hangar? How do they accommodate that? There's only one, the person that spoke in front of me. So he would be the benefactor of us having to leave. We moved into that hangar the minute it was built. We were offered it by the VAA. I'm a VAA board member and a voting board member, and I am a co-owner of Pyero. What I'm experiencing is a letter that I wrote to you on March 17th dictating 20 allegations of potential problems at Valkyria Airport with pictures. And since then, I have been harassed, terminated on the lease, had a hangar broken into by the assistant manager, and have to deal with a constant harassment from the current management. I don't wish to have these allegations. We've been locked out of the airport for 2 solid weeks. Not one of my renters, not one of my pilots could get into the hangar space to rent an airplane. That's wrong. We can't get a gate key code to get into the airport for qualified aviators to fly an airplane. ATP pilots who have SITA clearance can't even get a badge into this airport because that man won't allow it. I can't operate a business in Brevard County with these type of restrictions. I'm not asking for subleasing to be allowed at Valkyria Airport. These are 5 big hangars. One of them belongs to Mosquito Control, and subleasing is allowed in that hangar. Why aren't these 5 separated out from the rest of them and being treated as an entity like they should be? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Christopher Niles, Thomas Rodenbaugh, you'll be next, sir, if you come to the front.
Thank you, Commissioners. Christopher Niles, 716 Palm Springs Circle, Indian Harbor Beach. Thank you for your time today. I'm an instructor pilot at Valkyria Airport for the local flying club, Aero Valkyria, and also many of the private aircraft owners on the field. I earn my sole living at Valkyria Airport as I earn my hours towards hopefully being a commercial airline pilot. Right now, I am opposed to subleasing or any other arrangement or any other flower political language that might sound like, doesn't sound like subleasing, but is. Furthermore, that those in violation of subleasing at this time should be right away handed their notice of violation and no grace period be given to them to figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thomas Rodenbaugh, Dominique. Campaign.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Tom Rodenbaugh. I live at 702 Sanderling Drive in Indianapolis, Florida. I've been an aviator for over 40 years, and I've had the opportunity to fly out of Valkyria Airport, and it is a true asset to the county. It's a terrific airport, mostly because of the actions of the airport manager and the assistant manager who've improved it and improved conditions for promoting aviation in a safe and collegial manner. I'm opposed to subleasing or co-leasing. It's unsafe. You don't know who's in those facilities. You don't know what goes on in those facilities. It's also unfair because it subverts the wait list. I don't even know why this is an issue. The policy should be enforced. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Dominic Campaign, Lynn Walter should be next. Sorry?
Dominic Campisan.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I couldn't read your writing right there.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, name and address for the record, sir.
1505 14 Court, Vero Beach, Florida.
Thank you.
I'm a private pilot for over 30 years. I met Mr. Steve Brodsky about maybe 15 years ago. I put my name in the lease for over 10 years before I have hangar in Valkyria. And unfortunately, when I hear this news, it makes me a little bit upset, like, people be skip, jump, like, do favoritism to pass somebody else. I'm no agree to sublease hangar because it's not safe. And basically, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Walters, George St. Pierre, you're going to be next.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lynn Walters, 3885 Reynolds Road in the great town of Grant, Valkyria. I'm going to read this because I will get lost. I am a T-hangar tenant at Valkyria Airport and have been since the first hangar building was constructed. I come before you today to speak on the subject of the VAA pancake breakfast and changing the T-hangar lease requirements governing leasing, subleasing, and any other scheme to circumvent the hangar wait list. Aviation is my hobby. I'm addicted to building and flying my airplanes and using the privileges of my pilot's license since 1973. I was aware that there were discussions about safety of aircraft and personnel using the airport operation area during the pancake breakfast, held on the third Saturday of the month. I was not privy to any of the documentation about the breakfast until yesterday, when I received the email from the Assistant County Manager. I really appreciate the information. It appears to me that the pancake breakfast was a violation of multiple rules and regulations from the FAA. It just wasn't safe where it was being held. Many pilots from surrounding airports and local residents alike missed those breakfasts. I await their return. The subject of changing the T-hangar lease really baffles me. The links to the agenda attachments provided a wealth of information which causes me to wonder why we're here. Wasting our time and your time. Why wasn't it sufficient for the airport manager or the assistant county manager to assess that same information that I read and make a decision? This appears to be the same old politics from the airport's past. But I digress. I would love to offer space in my hangar to the highest bidder. There are those with large disposable incomes that would pay far more than the airport is charging just to get their expensive aircraft under shelter and out of the elements. However, for me, that would be morally and ethically repugnant. I have friends on that waiting list and would hate to see them discriminated against in the future. Yes, I've been a victim of subleasing in the past, but I was powerless to do anything about it. I do not wish to see that happen on our airport. The T-hangar lease, when I first started renting my hangar many years ago, was culled from those leases from surrounding airports and the requirements for a tenant or tenants to own the aircraft and be named on the lease.
I'm sorry, sir, are you about finished, or?
Real quickly. I'll go finish it up. I do not like many provisions of my T-hangar lease, but I do understand them and know why they're there. It never occurred to me to get like-minded hangar tenants to go on a letter-writing campaign to have the commission overrule the airport management and change the lease to fit my wants and needs. I guess I'm satisfied that I have a hangar and can enjoy my activities without having to ask for special privileges.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. George St. Pierre, Arthur Irvine. You'll be next, sir.
Yes, my name's George St. Pierre, and I live at 821 Vance Circle, Palm Bay, and I retired here 4 years ago, and because it was close to the Valkyria Airport, and getting to learn the management and the things that have gone in it there in the past and the improvements, I really wanted to get involved. So I signed up to get a hangar, and I was 60 on the list. I'm now 24. There's a new building going up. That means I should have a shot of getting number 24. If subleasing goes through, all that goes out the window. So I object to subleasing, and want to thank Steve Borowski for all the work he's done at that airport. It has changed drastically in the last 4 years, for the better. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Arthur Irvine, Tim Watson, you'll be next, sir, if you'd come towards the front.
And my name is Arthur Irvin, 2301 Oakland Street, Palm Bay, Florida. I stand here this morning rather baffled. Last Thursday night, while on vacation in North Georgia, I got a call that there was an email floating around promoting a response to this particular agenda item, which I had not been advised of. I didn't really know the content of the meeting until yesterday, and I'm the principal. I'm the bad guy. I'm the president of the Valkyria Aviation Association, a 501c3 educational charity. The VAA signed not one, but 2 leases. We had no choice in the lease what the terms were. We were told you can have this hangar to do your charitable duties. And the way we did that, we signed the lease 4.5 years ago, and then another lease a 1.5 years ago, basically. The VAA is there for the purpose of doing things like sponsoring the Civil Air Patrol Youth Organization, 2 Boy Scout entities, and the purpose of that hangar was to not only do that, but also do special events that were community supportive, charitably supportive, and we've done that as best we could, at least until not too long ago, when our opportunities were somehow cut off. But I stand here baffled to listen to folks who I've known for years, how they have personally benefited from the work of Hangar 71, principally enjoying the pancake breakfast and enjoying the financial benefits of the earnings we've had. We do not sublease. That's my rendition. We are one of 4 hangars that are special in that they are commercial grade size. 3 of them are for-profit businesses. And no one has questioned the ownership of the aircraft they provide services for. But they do question the service of storage that we provide. We have to own the hangars we store. That is a discriminatory practice. I do not support subleasing changes. They make no sense. They were never part of the discussion, and I don't understand how they ended up being the issue which most people are talking about. I do support provisional changes that make sure that the VAA can continue its work at its current location. We store aircraft. We make no profit from that storage. We use the money to pay the bills. That's it. I really ask the Commission to make certain that whatever is done allows us to stay in operation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Tim Watson.
Good afternoon. Tim Watson, 3590 Valkyria Road. I live across the street from the airport. Just here, I'm a member of Aero Valkyria. I fly in and out of Valkyria regularly. And if the debate, I'm not really sure kind of why we're all here, what the discussion is about. If it's being proposed that we change it to allow subleasing, I do not agree. I think it's unfair to those on the hangar wait list, and it's also unsafe as it gives away access to who is currently allowed on the airport property? They don't have control or know who is in those spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's the last of our comment cards. Commissioners, do you have any comments? Commissioner Isnardi?
Where to begin? This was first brought to my office several months ago, and the airport resides in Commissioner Tobias' district, and after reaching out to his office, he was okay with us sort of taking the lead on it because for some reason everybody started contacting us. I'm not sure if perhaps previous commissioner had a relationship with the airport or what the deal was, but we didn't mind taking it on. But it's been a very, very long, arduous, insane process. And I say that, with every bit of respect, but there's been a lot of little things that have sort of gotten in the way of what we're doing over there and what the intention of what we're supposed to be doing over there. And our emails, I'm sure your guys' email's been blowing up a little bit. I have one question because I'll offer my opinion on I think what we should do, but at first I would like to ask a question about the VAA. If we were to go with, say, for instance, we were to go with option 2, where we basically enforce the lease that we had them sign, what does that mean for the VAA in reference to ownership? If they're a nonprofit that rents a hangar, am I missing something?
Currently, to our knowledge, the VAA does not own any aircraft.
Okay, that's all I need for that. So again, and I'd be happy, I know Commission, obviously you guys I'm sure have done your homework and you have staff that has helped, and my staff, I can't thank them enough. Danielle Stern, Vic Lubker have been amazing. We've been sort of jockeying all these meetings, and I've met with several of the people that have spoke today, well, a few of the people that have spoke today and dealt with them on the phone and in person. But I personally would recommend, based on the information that we have, if we, for the subleasing direction, I would go with option 2. I think we have existing leasing contracts in place where we don't allow for subleasing, and it's very clear in our contracts that we don't allow for it. As an added suggestion, if Commission so agrees, maybe give them 60 days to get out, because they have to obviously go rent another hangar for the people that don't, for the people that are subleasing or whatever other fancy name they want to give it. But it is subleasing, and I think that it is grossly unfair. And and on a side note, I mean, the responsibility ultimately falls with us. We as a county failed because for years we allowed this to go on. So I'm glad we're making great improvements at the airport, and I'm really happy that everybody is happy and all the tenants are happy. We allowed all this subleasing to go on for many years, and that should never have happened. So with that, the county takes ownership for that. So now all we're doing is enforcing the rules that are in place, making sure we're in compliance with FAA, not risking our bond covenants, and it just makes the most logical sense. Yeah, is it going to please everybody? No. But the majority of the emails, the majority of the pilots and the tenants that are there want us just to enforce what we agreed to. And it's not perfect. And again, I think it's our fault. I think we screwed up. I think given the audit that, sort of got generated between our discussions with management and the several problems at the airport, ultimately all this little drama and all this little fight over pancake breakfast and people with cards and waiting lists and everything else, it's going to fix all these problems. So somebody on the waiting list, if someone's going to allege that somebody got jumped on the waiting list, that won't happen because of the measures that we're putting in place for transparency. So, I appreciate the amount of time that staff has put into this. I know the manager and Mr. Denninghoff and the airport manager has put an enormous amount of time into it. But again, let's fix. We can't go back. We can't blame. We can't complain. But let's do it right. So, I mean, I would suggest we go with option 2, where we enforce.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, but there's one more. As far as the ownership goes, the second item, I don't know if should we address those separately, Eden?
You could do it either way. You can do it either way.
Okay.
You can do it together.
Let's do that. So for subleasing direction, I would make a motion that we go with option 2, where we strictly enforce the existing prohibition on any subleasing, and where we provide 60 days for existing tenants to get any subtenants out of their hangars.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Tabaya, comment?
Just one quick question, and I don't know whether this would be the county attorney or Mr. Denninghoff. With the whole bonding IRS issue, is that 30 to 60 days going to make a difference in your opinion? Because I have no problem with the 60 days. If it triggers anything with this IRS stuff, it would really scare me.
I don't know that we can really know the answer to that question. It's unlikely that it would happen that quickly, but so we're probably safe, I would think. But I can tell you, the IRS is a harsh taskmaster.
So my question, I'm more concerned with the county's liability on the $10 million than a few folks that may have to look to get out of there in 30 days as opposed to 60. So as the assistant county manager over that area and waiting for our direction, would you feel more comfortable if it was 30 days rather than 60 days?
The lease actually provides for a 30-day termination of a lease, and so if they're in violation of the lease, they have 30 days to come into compliance. And so to implement something other than 30 days would sort of disregard what the lease has in it, but I don't know that there's a horrible situation if it goes 60. I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Barfield.
First, I don't even know why we're taking a vote on this. Just enforce. We just need to enforce the lease and enforce the rules. Bottom line, I do have a question. We talked about the one organization that doesn't really have aircraft there or whatever. Under the FAA requirements, it says it has to meet the FAA requirements for an aeronautical activity. Do they do that or not?
My assessment is that absent subleasing, and since they do not own aircraft, that by the FAA's definition, it is a non-aeronautical activity and should probably not be on the airport. On the other hand, if they have an aircraft and they come into compliance.
I'd like just one last thing too. I'm for this. Where are we going to enforce the law? Enforce what the requirements are. But truly, those who have the lease know they're not supposed to sublease. So, I think they need to get out immediately. Really, that's what the lease says. So.
I can't talk.
Hold on just a second. I'm almost with you on that. I was kind of interested that this did come to us because it's something I think y'all should have probably just done in-house and taken care of the situation. Two, Commissioner Tobias, I would be a little concerned about the IRS issues. I think we should do what we typically would do, and I'm almost in agreement with Commissioner Barfield. Here's my thought. You have people waiting on this, so you go ahead and get the big hangar, and you're going to rent it out to everybody else. And I don't know how much money they had coming in. They're paying $1,100. And on a entity that's run by the government to help give opportunity, that's just wrong in so many ways. And I was just like, got to fix that. Here's a question. Commissioner Isnari threw this out, and this concerned me. We allowed this to go on for years?
Yes. We did.
It has taken place for some time. I don't know exactly how long.
Have we known about that and not done anything about it?
I think there was confusion early on with the PIARO VAA relationship that could have been interpreted that that the VAA actually had some sort of an interest in the PIARO aircraft. When we did the aircraft hangar inspections this year, quite frankly, under my direction, Mr. Borowski did a more thorough inspection and reported back, and part of that was to check on the ownership of the aircraft in compliance with the leases. And that was actually done prior to many of the allegations that came up, and it was just we need to check the leases and the hangars for compliance with our lease. And so it was determined from that we verified, but based on the records that we had available, that none of the aircraft in Hangar 71 were under the ownership of the tenant, which made them all, in our view, sub-tenants or sub-leasers. And so the issues started to bubble up from that. And that's when we knew for sure that we had the issue that you have before you today.
Okay, because I wouldn't like if, as a government, we weren't enforcing our contracts. I think that's really important that we do that. So, okay, I probably wouldn't support a 60-day. I probably would handle a 30-day, but I do think this really hasn't been okay. Commissioner Isnardi.
And I'd be willing to amend my motion. The only reason why I suggested the 60 days is because regardless of what staff is saying, this has been going on for years. People have complained about it for a very, very long time. So whether we chose to turn a blind eye, whether we chose to only bring it up and to start to enforce the rules and enforce our lease now is on us. But don't be fooled. This has been going on and we've known about it. The problem is that it's never been an issue. It's never been a problem. Well, now it is because people are complaining and people are bringing it to commissioners' attentions and people are complaining about the manager, and it's a big soap opera. But the bottom line is we do need to enforce our lease agreements that we have. So I'm okay. I'll amend my motion if that's okay. So I don't know if I have to return it or amend it.
Well, you're amending your motion. Does that hold with the second?
I'll amend my motion to make it within 30 days as what's written in the lease.
Does the second hold with the amendment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, second holds Commissioner Smith.
Yes.
Your turn. Your light's on, did you?
Well, I just was going to
Gotcha.
reiterate what she said.
Okay, Commissioner Tobias.
I don't think 30, we have to go with 30 days.
That's fine.
We have a lease here. If we're going to abide by the leases as they're written and have been written, then 30 days is the time.
Commissioner Tobias, your light, sir.
I was going to try to split the middle of the 60 days, and Commissioner Barfield, I just envisioned him strapping on a harness and dragging these planes out, after the meeting. But I think 30 days is very, very fair, and I appreciate you amending your motion.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion on the table and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Commissioner Barfield, sure.
If this is an issue at this airport, I think we probably need to do an analysis of the other airports to make sure we don't have this situation there. I don't know.
Sounds like a plan to me, too. We are now at item...
We have the second portion.
We do?
Aircraft ownership options.
Okay. All right, Commission. You turn the light on?
Yeah,
Commissioner
that's on.
Isnardi.
We have another item on this issue regarding aircraft ownership, and I'm open for options as far as, obviously I think we probably all agree that the person should own an aircraft to rent and be a tenant with a hangar. But what kind of time frame? Because I guess there was some concern and some issue with people possibly snowbirding.
Yes, Commissioners, we have, in effect, right now, we have two snowbird tenants that are gone for much of the year, 4 or 5, maybe even up to 6 months at a time. And so one of the questions that comes up is, well, do we consider that not storing an aircraft? Obviously, when somebody's out flying the airplane, there's no airplane in their hangar, so you have hours of vacancy versus 6 months. And so somewhere in there, we need to be able to draw a line. And and for some people, gee whiz, if you're high on the waiting list, well, gee whiz, they're gone 6 months. I want that lease to be terminated. So we were looking for some guidance from the board on how we might want to try to handle that. And so there's a range of time in there we need guidance on.
Thank you. And again, that would be my concern. My concern is if they're renting the hangar and they do own an aircraft, it should make no difference if they're parking in there 6 months out of the year, or,
They're paying for it.
yeah, 10 months out of the year. If they're paying for it and they legally are allowed to lease it, I don't, under our terms, I don't see what the issue would be. So would that be option 3?
Option 3 would allow us to allow a tenant to have up to 6 months of vacancy, if you will. One of the things that also allows this to be done is the aircraft could be flown to another location to get work done on it, and it might be gone for several weeks or even a couple of months under that scenario, being repaired or modified. But in any event, if we have some guidance on the time frame, and we can draw a hard line, and then have that as a requirement that we can work into a standard lease that we would bring back sometime in August, and we'd make that so that any tenant is aware of what the time limit is, and then there'd be no surprises, and we'd be able to deal fairly with everyone, including the wait list. I don't know what to call them, the wait listers.
The additional language that's in there also, that 6-month time period would also provide the opportunity for a current tenant who sells an aircraft to replace that aircraft, and that specific language is included there in option 3.
Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple quick questions. Can you help me what the contract, the voluntary contract that these folks signed, does it say aeronautical purposes? And then the second part to that question is, we talked about the time frame with IRS bonds and all that stuff with the subleasing. Are any of those provisions triggered when it comes to this aeronautical ownership, or are we, in your opinion, or should I get the county attorney's opinion here, safe for none of those triggering on any of these options potentially?
If they own the aircraft and they're using it, I think, well, the FAA doesn't have specific rules about how long the tenant could be vacant from the hangar, although they do specify that it has to be used for aeronautical activities or aeronautical use. They've got 12 different categories of, and I do say categories of use that qualify as aeronautical uses. This one is principally storage of aircraft. We are allowed a certain amount of latitude on what we would allow for vacancy. I think the question is it fair? And I think we're okay if it's defined in the lease. Whenever we make a suggestion on a lease change, we run it to bond counsel and to make sure that he doesn't have a problem with it. And if he does, then we're going to make a modification to get him happy. So in this case, if it was 6 months, if it was less than 6 months, we would go to the less than 6 months when we bring it back to the board and say, hey, the reason we went to less than 6 months, assuming that's the direction you give us, we'd say because bond counsel said, gee whiz, it better be more like 3 months, or that could be a problem. We just don't know right now where he's going to draw that line. We haven't attempted to go there. We didn't know where the board was going to go with all of this.
So Madam Chair, I think we've heard from all of us, we're concerned about that IRS issue. I'd hate to say 6 months up here, and then you find out bond counsel says anything over 90 days and we're in trouble. I know I certainly trust staff to make that decision. I understand there was. I mean, we generally have new leadership here in Brevard County that I'm very thankful for. And I really appreciate you righting the ship here on what was astray for, it sounds like, many, many years when you were working hard paving roads and had no mindset on what was going on in the airport. I guess that would be option 5, is leave this to an administrative decision. So we don't have to deal with this again, should, in 3 weeks when bond counsel comes back with something that we direct. I would make a motion to direct staff to make the decision as fair amount of time as possible without getting us in any problem with any of the federal bonds that are currently out there. So that would be.
Can I let Ms. Bentley jump in? She's trying to say something,
Sorry.
then you can come right back and
No,
make the motion.
I agree with Mr. Denninghoff, and the lease provisions are very broad. It would be good if we could clarify them and tighten them up a little bit, and using the process as you have suggested is a great idea.
Okay. Commissioner Tobias, did you want to make that motion now, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like a motion to leave this administrative decision to the county manager and staff to make sure that we're in compliance with all with the bond council's recommendation.
I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second? Second. Commissioner Isnardi, you have a comment, ma'am.
Yeah, I would just suggest, because, per at least my direction, or at least my suggestion, is that we try to aim for the 6 months if possible, and unless we're told otherwise, maybe if Commission's okay with that, just to prevent.
I agree. Do we have a consensus on that, staff would try to?
If it works.
So I'll amend the motion to give the county manager
we're gonna
options
target 6 months.
to go as long as possible, not to exceed 6 months, as long as we get the okay from the bond authority.
Okay, Commissioner Isnardi.
And I just wanted to say one more thing. The only reason why this was brought back to our board was because of so many moving parts. It wasn't because, our manager or, county management didn't want to enforce the rules or enforce our leases. We just had a lot going on. So what they were looking for was, we did the audit, and they were looking for commission direction to make sure that this is what we wanted. Because for all they knew, that we would have been okay with subleasing, and we'll take the risk. I mean, obviously, none of us are willing to do that, but it wasn't that, they weren't enforcing it. It's just that these people have been allowed to do this for a long time, and we were coming in and now saying, these are the new rules. They wanted to make sure that commission was aware of it. So that's why it was brought back to us.
Okay, I have a motion on the table. I had a second, correct, by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Ms. Bentley, how did I do with that consensus? All right. We are now at item J4. Mr. Panic?
How y'all doing today? About ready to get out of here? I just have a question on a point of order. Do I get the full 5 minutes? Oh, awesome. Fantastic. Kevin Panic, 623 Oakwood Place, Titusville, Florida. Brevard County resident. Thank you, sir. Brevard County resident since 1976. Why am I here today? I made some charts, and I thought about them last night, and I'm thinking I'm having a problem communicating. So I'll probably deviate from these charts to try to make it simpler. I think when I bring too many things at once, my message is getting mixed. So I'm going to stick with number one. And I was at this podium August 2016 when I brought an item to this commission about the routine mowing over roadside litter as a standard practice in Brevard County. And at that time, I was kind of pie in the sky, and I thought I was going to be able to, and I tried, believe me, I did. I tried working with the government, I tried to have meetings, and failed miserably. So then, 2017, I came back a year later and brought it again. And that was around October. I kind of missed my anniversary of August. I'm actually a little couple weeks ahead of the anniversary. And then I met with Commissioner Pritchett, and I was probably pretty frustrating to you, and it was to me when we had our 15 minutes, and so trying to get to communicate a little clearer. Won't introduce a new challenge about them throwing stuff in your front yard in bags that are a week out of date, and didn't ask for that stuff. But and I think to try to be real clear is I just picked off our mission statement for Brevard County, our beautiful, wonderful county that we all love and work for. And that's to contribute to enhancing and ensuring Brevard's quality of life today and always. And then if you go down and you bore down, you see some wonderful, incredible words about openness in government and honesty and leaving something for the children. So I keep trying to get my head around, and I don't think I can. I haven't found an avenue of how mowing over roadside litter is supporting our vision. And so I've also wanted to try to nuggetize as to what, because in the beginning I thought, hey, we'll go off and fix this, and I understand, and I actually came to this commission and when I heard a thing about resources, jumping to the end game, well, the resources, and then I tried to come here and educate on project management and on the three legs, that if you don't understand a technical aspect of something, you have no grasp of the resources or schedule. They're all interlinked. So the nugget I tried to make, I think, for today is just help us with some transparency. Ask staff to look into it. One of the first questions I would ask is, I think, what do we have, 67 counties in the state of Florida, something like that? Are all those counties mowing over roadside litter? Is that a standard practice for all counties in the state of Florida? That would be my first question. If it is, then it sounds like we have a state problem. We don't have a county problem, but I don't know. So I've kind of put up this chart here to just say, hey, I want to help. I want to be part of the solution. I want to. I do have a full-time job, and I'm trying to do other things and picking up roadside. I mean, my schedule's full, but this is an important thing to our county, to our children. Just issue a one-page report. Just show us maybe in 30 days that we're looking at some things. Put it on the website. If you don't, hey, send it to me. I'll put it on Facebook. I'll just put it out there. I'll be part of transparency here. What's the work that we've done? And I don't need a show of, that's just county mower mowing over litter. A couple of videos that, if I had time, I would show you on the other issue, but let's just keep it to one. So this is my second year. Next month will be 2 years since I brought this. I think some of the things I saw today are just exactly like, don't bring me a problem without a solution. I'd say the solution here is the county needs to divest itself from staff work and do the political things. Because you guys got so much work and it's just going to keep on getting more. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Panic. We are at public comments. Oh, certainly, Commissioner Barfield.
I know, Andy, you and John, we talked about this the other day, looking towards possibly getting inmates through Wayne Ivy's organization to do some of this before the mowing. So I'll let you talk to it, but I think it'd be nice if we can at least make that contact and see if that's a resource we could use.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. We got that suggestion from you and also from Commissioner Smith, and we have reached out to the Brevard County Sheriff's Office to set up a meeting to discuss whether there's any resources in that area available that we can use and coordinate with our mowing activities to try to alleviate some of the mowing over the trash.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to figure out a way to do a countywide campaign to stop people from littering. I remember when I grew up, they had a slogan, give a hoot, don't pollute, and I think it helped for a little while, but we just probably need to get people more responsible of not throwing garbage out the window. We see it all the time, so I would love to be able to fix the problem. Wish it came with pain, but all right, we're going to move into public comments. Mr. Jim Colbrand? All right. Yes, sir.
Kindly helped me in the past. So I'm sidetracked.
State your name, please, and your
yes,
address
ma'am.
for me.
It's
Jim Colbrand. I reside at 7130 South Tropical Trail, Merritt Island, Florida. I had a little time to work. So good morning, Commissioners, Madam Commissioners, Jim, Mr. Barfield. We've known each other from work. I've been about 24 years at Space Center as a senior safety environmental engineer. So I pretty much know what I'm talking about. I'd like to title this speech as follows: Lack of Brevard County residents' concerns. I've been here since 1972. I see holes in the road. I sent them to Mr. Barfield. I did it myself with another resident. We filled it in. We put things on there. Luckily, a couple of days later, the county did finally show up. Police even showed. This deep. Long, short, the county's in bad shape. It really is. Roads, the whole works. Just walk and look and ride. It's there. It's ugly. I mean, these are hazards ready to people to sue, people to get hurt. I'm very passionate about this. To start, I'd love to say that I'm a huge proponent of kids, veterans, the affirmed, and lastly, the elderly. Roughly 30 years, I may get very passionate here. My wife Betsy was diagnosed with lymphatic cancer. It's pure health for all parties. The CDC back then identified Satellite Beach area as a cluster. What's a cluster, you ask? It's a large quantity of cancers clustered in a small region. Well, jump ahead 30 years, where I live right today, directly across from Patrick Air Force Base. The CDC has identified Satellite Beach as a cluster once again. But it's promising from a health point that the government, federal, and maybe county, I don't know, is taking action by testing all water sources in Satellite Beach. Beautiful. My current residents across from Patrick Air Force Base who recently had an algae bloom, small fish kill, and more importantly, numerous dead horseshoe crabs. I've learned a lot about the horseshoe crab. These beautiful creatures have been on Earth for more than 440 million years. Their blood is retrieved and sold to Big Pharma for roughly $15,000 per pint. It's really, really rich, iron-rich blood. So Big Pharma uses it. They're dead. They're dying. The lagoon is dead. For my edification, can you please explain to me the funding as read and published in the local newspaper? I actually kind of found it in here, but I wrote down the numbers. And again, this is for my edification. I don't understand if this is correct, that the county library district, well, let me back up. 135 shuttles were launched in a 30-year period.
Are you almost done, sir? I'm sorry.
About a minute more.
Commissioner,
30 seconds.
Okay,
30 seconds.
30 more seconds.
Well, as far as the library goes, I don't know the last time I've been to a library. I couldn't even tell you barely where the one is on Merritt Island. I'd like to recommend 7 repositories, 1 for each district. Buy copious amounts of computer equipment, example for toddlers, children, teens, elderly, etc. I'm sure the majority, because computers come and go, will be donated by NASA, the county, Lockheed, etc. And then just lastly, the bantering up here. First time I've ever been here. I'm kind of embarrassed as a resident of Brevard County what I'm seeing up here. Not from the majority here, but I think we know who we're talking about. And somebody got homework. That's what I heard. Somebody needs a homework. And I think maybe...
Thank you, sir. Your time's up. And
Okay.
I'm sorry about your wife. I hope she gets better.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
So will...
Thank you, sir. We are going to move into... Yes, sir. We're going to move into board reports. And County Attorney, Mr. Abate. I'm sorry. Manager, I'm reading it and saying it at the same time. I really do know who you are.
No report, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. County Attorney.
No report.
Thank you. District 5, Commissioner Zanardi.
No report.
District 4, Commissioner Smith.
No report.
District 3, Commissioner Tabaya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. According to PolitiFact, several local jurisdictions in our states have been considering sanctuary city and sanctuary county policies. In fact, just yesterday, the city of Orlando approved a policy which was applauded by left-wing groups for protecting illegal immigrants from law enforcement. I believe Brevard County can do better by making it clear that we respect federal law enforcement as well as legal immigration. As such, it is my hope to have something on the next board meeting agenda which would solidify Brevard County as a law-abiding and rule-following county rather than a sanctuary county, and one that respects lawful immigration system. So I'll have something ready. We do, according to newspaper articles, we do have a say in this, and I think it's very important that we outline that. So thank you for your time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Barfield. Okay, I don't have a report, but I watched a movie from Winston Churchill, and I thought there was a clever quote I just thought I would give to y'all. Those who never change their minds never change anything. So I thought that I would throw that out. I thought that had a lot of wisdom in it. And Ms. Bentley, if you would go ahead and read our
Your
special
executive
meeting.
session,
Yes, ma'am.
You're moving into executive session next, as authorized by Section 286.011, paren 8, Florida statutes. The Florida Board of County Commissioners, Brevard County Board of County Commissioners will now commence the private attorney-client meeting to discuss settlement negotiations and/or strategy related to litigation and expenditures in the case of Massey General Contractor, Inc. versus Brevard County et al., case number 05-2015-CA-46973. The names of the persons attending the attorney-client private meeting will be Commissioner Rita Pritchett, Commissioner Jim Barfield, Commissioner John Tobias, Commissioner Kurt Smith, Commissioner Christina Snarty, County Manager Frank Abate, County Attorney Eden Bentley, Assistant County Attorney Matthew Sauce, Outside Counsel Michael Milne, and King Reporting Services Representative Margaret Sheffield. The attorney-client private meeting will be held in the County Manager's Conference Room, 3rd floor of Building C at the Brevard County Governmental Operations Center, 2725 Judge Fran Jamison Way, Viera, Florida. The estimated length of this attorney-client session is approximately 1 hour. The public portion of the meeting will be reopened very briefly at the conclusion of the executive session. It would now be appropriate for the chair to entertain a motion to temporarily adjourn and reconvene in the county manager's conference room.
So I now entertain a motion to temporarily close out this meeting.
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor say aye. Aye. See you guys upstairs.
Really excited.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.